folks, be prepared. Crack those taps. Take care of your peripheral water lines. 24 is pretty darn cold for Owendale. All right, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I'm going to start off with the serenity prayer. So I'm going to read it to you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And lastly, the civility pledge. I pledge to build a stronger and more prosperous community by advocating for civil engagement, respecting others and their viewpoints, and finding solutions for the betterment of my town, Owendale. So here's the call to order. I am John David Osgathorpe. We have, let me see, I see Jay, I see Jeff. Who else is on here? Is or James
is on here.
Kelly and James.
James is on here.
Kelly's here too.
Okay. Well, I've dubbed us the four J's and a K, and we are not a band. We are actually a comedy group, but it's John, Jay, Jeff, James, and Kelly. All right. So here we are. We are going to go into a public comment session. Members of the public can log in, use the chat room to note that they want to talk, and they can have up to 2 minutes. And this will be kept by Dan O'Hara, and I will just sort of step to the side. Dan, it's yours.
Thank you. If anyone would like to make general public comments, you're more than welcome to put your name and address in the chat. If you're unable to do that or don't know how, I'd be more than happy to take your verbal name and address and allow the chairperson to hear your comment. And just for the Planning Commission's awareness, there were no public comments received beforehand.
Well, hearing nothing, I'm going to just continue on with this. Have you gotten anything in your chat, Dan?
I do not see anything, no.
There is one. I'm seeing one anyway. No, that's from you. Ah, okay. Sorry about that.
Just need a motion to close the public hearing or public comment period.
So moved, James Gardner.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay. And James, Jay, look at behind me. That's my sun up. So I'm matching you, sun up for sun up.
Not bad.
Okay? That's
Not
it.
bad.
Yeah, all right. All right. I'd like to start with a couple of off-the-cuff comments. One of them is to congratulate the Friends of South Carolina and the South Carolina Environmental Law Project on their victory before the Supreme Court of the state and getting a hold on the septic development of one of the White Tracks. I spoke to the lead attorney a couple of days ago, very nice lady, Monica Whalen, and they are litigating the second track as we speak. So we shall see how that goes. But I'm a major supporter, financial and personal wise, of the South Carolina Environmental Law Project, and it's something I think we should all look on favorably. All right, so old business. We're going to talk about something that we've first talked about in a meeting in February, and have looked at numerous variations of this. Committee's probably tired of hearing it, and we went through it extensively at our last meeting, and that's vested rights. And we made a modest number of changes. A bunch of legalese got put in, which is exactly what should have happened from our very competent attorneys, and they basically have a final version back for us, and it basically represents what we have to do legally and what we as a committee over a period of 2 meetings came up with. This is right after the initial page of your agenda, and it starts off with the staff report, which basically tells us what we already know. I will open the floor for any comments from the committee as to the contents of this, starting with an ordinance of the town of Allendale. Does anybody have anything further to add? As again, we've done most of it.
I
As a point
had,
of clarification, I'd probably have a motion and a second on the floor for further discussion.
I make a motion that we start further discussion. James Gardner.
Second,
Second.
all right. I
I
have
had a
one.
couple,
Go ahead.
James Gardner, I had a couple thoughts. Section, where are we here? Section 0.056, subsection 2, letter B, within 60 days of the planning commission's receipt. I assume that's in there because that's if we don't do it within 60 days, it gets automatically approved thing. But in theory, we're going to try to get to it within that month.
Correct.
Is that a correct assumption on both of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So that language comes directly from our preliminary plat approval. So the section that you're looking at is for any site development or site specific development plan that the town doesn't currently already address, providing that procedure that's already laid into our code.
Okay. I figured I just wanted to clarify that. And then in section 057B, within a reasonable amount of time, we may have already covered this. It just seems vague. And why didn't we quantify that?
We
Yeah.
did, and that was a mistake, and I clarified it with Dan. It was 60 days.
Okay.
But
Sounds
yes,
good.
we did talk about it, and we talked about anything from 1 month to 3 months, and have settled on 60 days. If you'll go to the next one, 1353-058, that is basically our lawyers, and they are still trying to hash out whether both the planning commission and the town council can terminate, revoke, or do whatever to vested rights that have violated their conditional approval.
Mhm.
And some versions just put the planning commission and the town council in the same sentence, and some do separate sentences. Now, I know that sounds silly, but that's sort of what's going on there. And that's the only reason that section is highlighted in yellow. It changes nothing, but it's just legalese.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was one of my other questions is the time frame on that, but I think that answers that. And if we go back up to 057 section C 1 1B, a copy of a formal approval for the site-specific development granted by the local governing body or designated officer. Who is that talking about? Is that talking about Dan? Is that talking about Charleston County? Or does that just give us the freedom to have it from anybody who asks for it?
So that would apply to approval from Planning Commission, approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and approval from Town Council, myself, anyone that is able to make a site-specific development plan decision, final body decision on. So whether that's from the Town Council, Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Commission, or myself.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks.
And we can write that out explicitly, but I think we kind of went back and forth on that one a little bit and left it at a formal approval instead of being like formal letter or permit or, just formal approval.
Right. I just didn't want it to, they get some Charleston County letter saying something, and I don't want anybody to try to claim that as something that could qualify them to get through this when it's not actually something coming from the town or one
Right.
of our boards.
Yeah. So
Should we say town specific possibly?
we could, yep.
Would anybody be opposed to that?
I will add that because the Charleston County Building Services does approve our building permits, that currently that approval would come from them. So just as in mind for that, but if we issue a zoning permit, it should be well vetted through that
Mhm.
process already.
Right. So that zoning permit that precedes the building permit could count as the formal approval for site-specific development. And it would allow us to be able to put town-specific or something to that effect. So they
Correct.
didn't bring in some random thing from the county that we didn't know about or approve.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I
So
would
that-
like to see that in there if everybody else is in agreement with that.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Anything else? All right, so we've got the 60 days and we've got James's rewording. Anything else?
Yeah, I have a question in that same section 057 in paragraph A. Why was may changed to shall? Why are we mandating that people request annual extensions?
I think that's a good point. That might have been a Scribner's error on my part.
Okay.
I went through and changed a lot of the voluntary language. Yeah, I'll change that immediately.
Yeah, good idea.
That was a good catch.
And then I know I had brought this up before. I didn't know, Chloe, if you have any additional input about the proposed limitation to 2 annual extensions versus the 5 that it's my opinion is required by state law. So I'm just looking for some legal input there, please.
Dan, did Mac talk to you about that this morning?
Yeah, we talked about it. So Kelly, I can address that. So Mac,
Okay, great.
Mac had mentioned that there were other communities in the area that have adopted similar limitations. He noted that it is a bit of a gray area. No one has been directly prevented from it out of the ones that have adopted it, but of course, it remains untested. So it is, a vulnerable spot.
Okay.
And we discussed it and we voted on it, and let's see what happens. Now, besides that, is there any other suggestions on this so that we can just sort of see the back end of this vested thing? And this will be going, of course, to council, who will do whatever they want with it, which is entirely their right. So Dan, what changes do you have? You've got the shell, you've got the stuff we talked about, we got the stuff James talked about. What else?
Yeah,
Or are you okay with what you have right now?
Yeah, I'm good. I will ask if the planning commission wishes, we could move forward with a recommendation with the edits as described, or it could come back to the planning commission to look at it again. I'm happy to entertain a motion for either option.
Well, I'd like to move that we move forward with it with the changes as we outlined, and not have to see it for the 4th time.
Second, James Gardner.
Dan, can you also read out those descriptions for the record, just in case some of them
Of
were
course.
missed?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's the change for reasonable amount of time to 60 days prior to the expiration. Instead of it reading formal approval, it should read town-specific approval. And the language to change from may to shall submit a request for an extension should be reverted back to may. And I believe those were the 3.
To my scribbling on the sheet here, those are the ones. Does anybody else recall anything? Okay, so I would like to move that we adopt this and as revised by us at this meeting, and move forward with it.
My second remains.
Point of correction, the motion should be approved for recommendation with edits as provided.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
But wait, before you call on the vote, I'm not going to support the motion because I just
That's
do not
perfectly
agree.
fine.
I just
No
and
problems.
I just wanted to say for the record, I don't think that that state law allows us to limit the number of annual extensions. I think it requires at least 5. So that's my dissent.
We got it. All in favor? We
Aye.
Aye.
all opposed?
Aye
Okay, so
or
be it.
nay. Do I say nay?
Nay. That's perfectly fine. And I'm sure that every one of us, regardless of our views on the various parts of this thing, are glad to see it in the rear view mirror. We will send this to the front of the vehicle of the town council, and good riddance. All right, can we scroll on down to the next section, which is going to be what we're going to talk about most of the time this meeting, and that's the plan development regulations. I'm going to give a little background for the wonks. And I know there's some of you out there, as they've been, and I'll make this succinct. There's two types of town planning. One is Euclidean, and the other is non-Euclidean, as you'd expect. Euclidean comes from a Supreme Court case in 1926, which is the first time that a municipality gained the right to zone their own land. They were being sued by, what would you expect, a realtor. Anyway, this town was Euclid, and Euclid is the father of geometry. So it's a proof in my mind that God has a sense of humor. So why would the father of geometry town be the one to come up with this zoning? But that's the name of the town, and hence Euclidean. What we're talking about with plan development is non-Euclidean, and that's a relatively new thing. And it instead of strict blocks, there's a residential zone, there's a commercial zone, there's an industrial zone. There is mixed use. So there's more than one thing in a zone, commercial, residential, whatever. And the idea was to create vibrant neighborhoods. It's supposed to be walkable, and it's supposed to preserve the character and feel of the area. That is non-Euclidean planning. The state of South Carolina got into that the first time in 1994, and it's our state ordinance, chapter 29, article 1, section 6-29-740, and I'm holding the thing right, well, somewhere in there. It's on one sheet, it's half of one sheet of paper. That is the entire ordinance. Let me read from the first sentence. New mixed-use developments and preservation of natural and scenic features of open space. The Supreme Court upheld the mixed use and mandated it in a case in, about 10 years ago involving Wadmalaw, where someone tried to use a plan development to cram in more housing on a piece of property that zoned for less dense housing. That is exactly what is happening in Allendale, or has happened in Allendale. We have had, since 2000, this is courtesy of Dan, 28 planned developments in the town of Allendale. 12 of them are existing. We've got 4 or 5 currently pending, and a number that are in, shall we say, under legal review. Of those, including the ones that are under development, which you driving along Seawee Road or the beginning of Door well know, 2 out of the 28 that have been approved since 2000 meet the criteria for a planned development district per the state. 2. Basically, they have been residential zones in which they've crammed in more houses than the underlying zone, which is usually agricultural. By the way, our agricultural zone minimum lot size is ½ an acre. And most of these planned developments are 1/4 to 1/3 of an acre. And the other thing that's been used for is commercial. So what we're trying to do is get back to what a planned zoning, planned urban development, planned unit development, however you want to call it, in real life is in the state of South Carolina and every other place, and to adhere to that. Okay, that's what this whole thing is about. Now, I said, we've been playing with this current regulation, which was, there was a regulation put together in 2000 and 2005, and then it was rewritten in 2023. And we've been working on the one from 2023, which is the one that's currently in effect. There's some parts of that regulation that don't make a lot of sense, and some of them that are clearly contradictory. We will be going through those in the next half an hour. I and Dan and Jay got together at various times and hammered out some significant revisions. Then I gave copies of that to James, Jeff, and Kelly and asked everybody for comments back. I received comments back, extensive ones from Jay and Kelly, and no one else. I got together with Dan last week, and we spent a couple of hours going over things. And then I got 3 screens up. I had Kelly's comment on one screen, Jay's comments on one screen, and Dan and mine on one screen, and tried to put the whole thing together into something that is cohesive. And we were remarkably close on what we thought about how this should work. And that's what we're going to go through now. Dan has the copy of this particular latest version of the draft, and actually so does Jay. I couldn't send it to anybody else because then we got the whole quorum issue, but I'm going to go through it with you, and it doesn't differ that much for what is in the minutes. I mean, you've got there the plan zoning provisions, which was the initial draft that everybody on this committee got. All right. So we're going to start on, I'm going to start through this thing and point out where we have made some recommendations from the one that, oh, geez. Oh, it just disappeared. Sorry, I'm back again. Sorry about that. From the initial version. Okay. If it is English, it comes from Kelly. Kelly reminds me of my 7th grade English teacher, and boy, is she strict. So if there's a shall versus a must or this, it's Kelly. I can tell you. And we love you, Kelly. But man, you are tough. I feel that ruler across my
I held back.
hand.
I held back too. So
You held back. Oh God. If I get a full blast of it, I probably won't live through it. But anyway, so we are sitting on page 1, which starts 153-045, and this is the current ordinance upon which we are suggesting changes. Okay, so this is our existing ordinance that you see in black and white, and where you see things in red, it's things where we've made some changes. And you'll see a couple of other colors, and I'll explain them as we get there. And what I'm asking for is your consideration of the changes to our current ordinance. All right. So our first page, I'm going to read the first sentence. It's got a Kellyism, excuse me, it's got a grammar change in it. The initial thing is planned developments shall be mixed use. Kelly wants it to say, I mean, having a mix of uses, Kelly believes that we should say shall be mixed use, which is proper English, and I suggest we adopt that. Going down to the
Question
last,
there. Question there.
yeah,
How do we define mixed use? Does that mean it has to have commercial, residential, and institutional?
I'm going to get to that by the end of this paragraph.
Okay.
And it's going to be a real obvious question. And the committee's going to have to decide that. And what your guess is as good as mine. And I'll cite a couple of examples. But anyway, let's go to the last sentence now.
Let me
that
quick
initial-
mention. How about the
Yeah.
word that? Planned developments or developments that shall be mixed use? Is that not supposed to have a that there?
it should. Yeah, that
Kelly?
it sounds.
Okay.
Yes, it sounds funny like that. It should be planned. You could just say planned developments are mixed use developments that are planned and developed under unified control.
Yeah.
That what you want, Kelly? All right, good. Now, let's go to the next to last sentence and the last sentence. The last sentence is new. Anyway, the town wants to use these sparingly as the current language. I basically lifted the language from Columbia, which I think suits our purpose and is very common out there. They said it very emphatically. It is the intent of this town that planned development districts shall be used sparingly, only when the criteria for no other zone is suitable. In other words, stop cramming planned developments into residential zones or commercial zones or whatever. And this comes straight out of Columbia. And that is the language we came up with, and that's where we got it. Okay. Now, regarding Jay's very good question. There are two general approaches in this state, and I'm tired of reading ordinances of various towns, and there's no universal agreement. So it's something that this committee is going to have to decide for themselves. I have not gone through this with any member of the committee or with Dan because it has to be a joint decision of all of us. So this one, there's two ways of doing it. One is to say mixed use must be mixed use. So residential and commercial, or residential and government, or residential and industrial, or whatever. Okay. That is the traditional mixed use. More recently, towns have allowed mixed residential use. So here's from York County from 22. This is the most comprehensive recent one. I've learned that you don't argue with York County because their legal representation is incredibly good. They were the ones who got the over $20,000 impact fee past the Supreme Court and stunned every other town in the state. And the Board of Realtors, by the way. Their legal support includes the team that represents us, by the way. And what they have, so basically this is legal. Each plan development should include a compatible mixture of residential and or non-residential uses. They have two types. Mixture of residential use types. Plan development shall include a mixture of at least two different housing types, such as single family and apartments, townhouses and apartments, or some other combination of residential types. Example of this in Mount Pleasant is Snee Farm. You get all those estate lots as you enter into Snee Farm, and as you go toward the back, you get smaller houses. And if you go to, let's say, the north part of it, you get Snee Farm Gardens, and you get a bunch of detached condos. That is a residential mixed use, Snee Farm. Okay. Then there's a mixture of residential and non-residential uses, which is the traditional, where you have both residential and non-residential, which is commercial, industrial, governmental, whatever you wish. And the allocation, at least according to York County, should be not exceed 80% of either one. So it's 80% residential, 20% otherwise, or 80% industrial, 20% residential. The example of that would be Ion, which is the penultimate planned urban development in our area. And that has small commercial businesses up front, basically barber shops, lawyers' offices, doctors' offices, small bars, very good restaurants, by the way. And then as you go back, you drive into the residential development. And so Snee Farm Ion, that is basically what York County did. So we can either do strict residential and non-residential. That's it. It can be residential, but there's got to be something else in there, or we can do different types of residential. Those two approaches are perfectly fine and perfectly legal. So we can do one, we can do the other, we can do both. And York has done both. They've given the Planning Commission the option of either type. And I'd like to hear your opinion, Jay. Can you hear me, Jay?
I can.
Go
I
ahead.
can. What is the advantage to the town of calling a plan development one that has a mix of different kinds of residential types, apartments, townhouses, single family homes? What do we gain by that?
Well, something that is being gained most commonly nowadays, and again, I'm just quoting from other towns and other ordinances, is that for instance, they're using it as an incentive to build more, they say worker-friendly, reasonable priced, approachable housing. So let's say you've got a residential zone and it is ruled for 2 acre lots or 3 acre lots. Okay. What the planning commission will do will say, we will give you 20% of those lots that you can make 1 acre lots if you put more affordable housing on those lots and charge less for them. So they're basically making room for a more reasonable entry into the particular community. This is particularly common in rich communities. We're talking about Hilton Head and York, by the way, and others. That's one way of doing it. And the other way of doing it is just to allow them to mix apartment buildings with residences. But those are the two ways that I've seen done.
Well, I would say if what our goal is to keep Allendale rural, the only place that I would see we would want to have these plan developments would be on the more, the more heavily traveled roads, thoroughfares, and make them mixed with commercial and residential, because that's what Allendale is missing is, more businesses up along 17, maybe some other places, but I would be more, I don't want to do anything that's going to give somebody an excuse to have higher density. And if you're talking about townhouses and apartments, that's what you're really talking about.
Well, also need to consider that we don't have sewer here, so you're gonna have a hard time getting a whole lot of density.
Right.
Jeff, what else do you think about this thing? Would you do the mixture of residence or the residential and non-residential, or will you just do residential and non-residential as Jay is bringing up? What do you want to do?
Again, I think sewer drives a lot of this because of the density, but I kind of like the idea of having some mixed use residential and also commercial. I mean, I'm for all that. I'm a big push for the commercial part, but I think mixed use residential could be advantageous as well.
Well, that's the only way we're going to get affordable housing in here, I think.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
just bringing that up.
Townhouses or duplex and some lots would not be a bad thing. But you start trying to create apartment buildings, it's just, you're going to have to develop a lot more land and have.
They have to get it past the planning commission for that, buddy. Septic is just no way. But I understand.
Yeah, and if we're
Okay,
gonna do
James, what do you got?
I would say if we do the mixed residential, that we should have some kind of safeguard against the total overall density on a piece of property.
Agree.
I think that's already built into there. One of the things in there said something to the effect of 1 per acre. We had changed it from 4 dwelling units per acre to 1. I think that's covered under that. Depending on what everybody else thinks. I like the idea of commercial residential. I certainly don't want the word industrial to be in there anywhere. And I hope that I'm not the only one that thinks that. I don't think that's where we are. I don't think that's where we live. But I think that commercial and residential are important. If it has both of those, obviously it would be odd for some things to be in the middle of a neighborhood, but certainly a coffee shop could be sustainable and things like that. And I think, as I say every meeting almost, the only way that this town survives is if we have a little bit of commercial here and there. We can't make so many rules against it. But I like the idea that this brings in. And I like forcing it a little bit, because if somebody wants to do a PD, they have to have a little bit of mix. And I don't think that's the end of the world. I also like the mixed residential use, but I don't think that we should. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards you can't get a get out of jail free card to keep from having to put commercial in there just by doing a mixed residential. I like the idea of the commercial in there a little bit, because again, that's our profitability as a town.
And a mix of all three is I even like more. I think that's,
Yeah,
if you
I think
have-
that's great, all three, or at the very least, commercial and residential. And don't let anybody just take a residential mixed use path out, because that doesn't help the town's bottom line.
Yep, I agree. My only concern again, which I think I've highlighted, is affordable housing. I don't, I think we need to have ways for young families to get houses here. And if it's got to be, on 1 acre lots instead of 3 acre estate lots, so be it. But that's just my view. And my view is one of five and is no more important than any of yours. Kelly, what do you have?
Well, I think that the South Carolina Planning Act and the Sinkler versus Charleston County case that you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation requires that a planned development have not only a mixture of residential uses, but also commercial. So it has to be the statute, the definition in the statute of planned development district is a development project comprised of housing of different types and densities and of compatible commercial uses or shopping centers, office parks, and mixed use developments. There's more to it, but the Sinkler case affirmed that a PD requires multiple types of residential in addition to, I would characterize as non-residential use, so that we're not trying to decide, nitpick between commercial and industrial and this and that. It's just residential and non-residential, I think, is
Yeah.
the simpler way to do it.
I agree.
I agree.
So we're on mixed use, which would be residential and something else. Is that it? I'm not going to specify it as commercial or governmental or industrial. But by the way, James, there's no industrial is in this entire act, and it won't be. But is that what I hear from you guys and ladies?
Yes.
Sounds
And
like it.
Kelly, how would you word that? Would you say mixed residential and a mixture of residential and non-residential? I don't know exactly how to word
We'll just
that. So
take
we
the
get all
second
three.
paragraph out of York County, which is.
Would you mind reading it again for us, Dave?
Sure. Mixture of residential and non-residential uses shall consist of both residential and non-residential components. Neither residential nor non-residential components of the proposed development may exceed an allocation more than 80% of the gross area of the district. We can say 90% if you want it to be mostly a residential or mostly whatever. But that's what they came up with. And that's excellent language. And it does reflect what Kelly just said.
Except I didn't hear the part about it requires both types of residential in there. Did it?
So you could say a planned development has to have at least two types of dwelling units.
Well, now we're
And the
back to
commercial
dwelling units.
component?
Well, so
Yeah.
you've got to have both. So a planned development has to have at least two types of dwelling units, whether that's detached houses, duplexes, and a non-residential component. And you can put, like York County did, you can put a percentage on it so that you're not getting, some sort of token commercial use, but you can have, at least 20% of the land area has to be devoted to commercial uses, and, at least the dwelling unit types, they have to be at least, 70-30, they have to be at least 70% detached houses and 30% duplex, something like that. So we can set ratios that will make sure that you get that mixture.
You okay with 80? York's 80%, or do you favor more or less?
I don't know. I don't know what's appropriate. I mean, I agree that the town of Allendale needs commercial. I mean, that really grows our tax base. It doesn't cost as much. It produces more taxes than it costs to serve, unlike single family residential. But commercial requires rooftops, and I think it's going to be difficult to draw a lot of commercial and sustain a lot of commercial until there are more houses. So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yes, it is a catch-22. We're working with that right now. Would you be comfortable working with Dan on something God, it's going to be like a half a paragraph for us on this particular issue?
Sure.
Okay, I would love to see that at our next meeting, and we will put it in there for us to look at. But I suggest you start with York County 22 because they're unassailable and you can use part of their language or whatever else you wish. Basically, you're talking about Ion, and that's fine. Now, Ion is probably the best development I've ever seen. I wish I'd gotten property in there. Okay. No,
Hey, I
man.
have
Now,
a
can I make-
question.
Unless you have
I-
a big,
I have a question too.
Sure.
Go ahead. Who
Not all at the
was
same
first?
time. Jay, what do you
Okay.
want?
So, Chloe, do you agree with Kelly's understanding of that definition of mixed use?
I think that it's honestly still open to interpretation, and it's at this point um kind of a choice that the town has to make on whether or not they want to, follow the York approach or, take a more narrow approach. I don't think there's much law on how it's supposed to be interpreted.
So what we're saying is there's going to have to be at least two different kinds of residential unit and commercial. Is that what we're saying?
Non-residential, yeah, so it could be government or,
Non-residential. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be institutional,
Mhm.
civic,
Yeah,
or
School.
governmental,
or
commercial,
resident,
whatever.
or I mean,
Yeah.
commercial. Excuse
And
me.
there doesn't seem to be anything that explicitly says that that's not permitted, so I think it would be permissible.
Okay.
Are you, is that
Jeff,
all
you had
have,
something?
Jay? Yeah, my thought is for, expedience sake, could we just go ahead and put something together quick while we're here and get this thing on over to the town council? I just worry we're getting closer and closer to this end of this moratorium, and I'd like to get as many things off our plate as we can so we can focus on the rest and not leave us open to any trouble should some developers come along post moratorium if we haven't gotten our ducks in a row.
And that's
I
why
mean,
we
can we
got a
do it?
second. That's why we have a second meeting this month is to finalize
Yeah.
this thing. If you want to start wordsmithing at the end of this, we're just starting in this thing. We will
Yeah.
be here all night. Anyway,
All right.
serve at your pleasure. Now, then what we have on this first page, this is again 153-045 C. We have a Kellyism on the second line where she says and commercial and or institutional uses. That it is of no consequence, but it is proper. And Kelly is per usual right.
Well, based on our previous conversation, I would just change it to a mixture of residential and non-residential and get rid of the commercial and institutional language.
Yeah,
Okay.
agree.
agree.
You got that, Dan?
Point of clarification, is the section on your screen the one that you were just citing?
Yes.
And you want it to read instead of as proposed to read, I apologize, I'm just getting to that section on my paper copy here. A mixture of residential types.
I think she said a
Um,
mixture of residential and non-residential uses.
Yes.
Got it.
And then this is just the purpose section. So then later on in the document,
Yeah,
we would
later on, we're going to
specify
get to the specifics.
Got it.
yeah.
This is just bomb and apple pie at the beginning here. Most of this is boilerplate. We're getting into the specifics real soon. All right, next page or next section, 153-046 applicability. All right. We got a couple Kellyisms, excuse me, they're going to be called Kellyisms on the
That's
first
fine.
paragraph. And it's basically changing development agreement to PD map. And she is right. You need an approved plan and you need a map. And she's just put map behind every time she's put plan. And Dan has a copy of that because I put that when I did that when I was integrating 3 screens and basically torquing my neck going between them. Okay, getting down to much more important things. Go down to B1. Everybody there? Down near the, yeah, okay. The minimum size for a PD district shall be 10 acres of we've added developable land because we don't want 10 acres of swamp. And most every other municipality has done the same thing. They've had developable land, they've had high land, they've used various euphemisms for the same thing. We don't want any swamps. So 10 acres of developable land, excluding setbacks and buffers.
Or excluding wetlands or developing, how about developable upland?
Okay.
And then excluding setbacks and buffers, or you could say excluding wetlands, but you accomplish the same thing that
You're
way.
saying the same thing, one or the
Yeah.
other. So
I
you
would
want
say
to say
developable
developable
upland.
upland?
Yes,
Okay, you got it?
and then also, why 10 acres? That seems a little small to me.
Well, you brought
What was
that
it before? 5?
One.
one.
One
But
acre.
at some point we changed it as the prior commission above 1, and I think we brought it to 5.
I
That's
don't
right.
know. Um,
I recall that too, James.
but then they had the size of the lots were 1/4 acre. And we will get to that in a minute. Anyway, let me answer your question by just giving you a bunch of facts. And there is no unanimity in the state on the size of a PD. Richland County has 2 acres. Pickens and Georgetown have 10. Beaufort has 4 minimum, and their maximum is 25. Holly Hill is 23. Go figure, okay? Charleston, 5. State Code of Law for an extended vesting period, which we won't do anyway, is 25 acres. Williamsburg is 6 acres. So, folks, it is your pleasure. There is no unanimity in the state and there's no law. So, what size do you want a PD? And when we were batting it around, we came up with 10 acres. I've heard 8 acres and I've heard 15 acres. And those things came from various members of this committee, and we settled on 10. But it's no magic number. And I've
It
told
seems
you.
like the smaller you make that minimum size, the more of them you're going to have. I mean, I guess we still have to approve the submission, but why not make it 20 acres? Just to throw that out there.
Well, you got the lot size. Remember, we haven't gotten to that yet. We're just talking about the size of the PD, not the lots on the PD. That will be coming up shortly.
Yeah, but I think to Jay's point, if you want to reduce the number of PDs, then you make the minimum requirement larger.
I have
Then-
no
We
argument.
are wanting them to be used sparingly, so that would lend itself to
Would it-
that.
Because I think most developable land, I mean, there are some large tracts, but there's a lot of smaller tracts.
But
Kelly.
on the flip side, do you want to preclude, I mean, if somebody has a really innovative development that can't be accommodated under a base zoning district, do we want to preclude them from doing that because they have 8 acres instead of 10 or 5?
I think the number of septic tanks you can put on 8 acres kind of limits what you can do creatively.
True, that's a good
Especially
point.
with 1 acre minimum to the houses. You'd have a hard time getting much in a 5 acre lot if you had to have 80% residential, and you had to have 1 acre lots for each house, and then there'd be not really any room for commercial. It would get kind of tight, I think, the smaller that we make it.
Remember
But then
that
somebody just can't do it
on
with
our
that
next
particular.
page, we've got 20% open space. So whenever you get your number, think of 20% of that being open.
Mhm.
So reduce the housing by 20%. I'm just bringing that up. I am not advocating any acreage. I'm listening to you folks, and that's it.
Dan, I have a question for you. If to Kelly's point, if we made it 10 and somebody had an 8 acre property, would it just be a matter of them going to the Board of Zoning Appeals, or how would would there be an avenue they could take to bring about a really innovative design and get around that 10 acre thing that we put in there, or is that hard and fast?
Yeah, they would likely need a variance after approval from y'all. So their plan development would be contingent on that variance. And of course, town council the same, being
Mhm.
if it were to be recommended for approval by this body to the town council therefore approves it. And if it was under the acreage requirement, they would need a variance to secure that that plan.
So Kelly, if
But
that did come up, there's an avenue for them to work it.
yeah,
Well, we
but
don't want
it's
to
not
give
it's not
people ways
practical.
to get out of it.
What's the hardship?
Yeah.
There's no hard, you can't, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any experience with the Board
Are
of
we
Zoning
required
Appeals
to have
here,
a
but
hardship, or can we just
Excuse me,
realize this is the
Commissioners.
standard of the plan?
A point of
Hold
order.
on, hold on, one at a time.
As we've moved into more discussion rather than the introduction, we should have a motion and a second on the floor to continue.
To
I
continue
make a
what?
motion that we continue discussion, start discussion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's do it one at a time. Kelly, you've got the floor right now.
I'm not advocating for a particular acreage. I think any sort of PD that requires a mixture of residential dwelling unit types and non-residential use. I think 10 acres is probably impractical. I think it's going to be greater than that. I just don't think if the Board of Zoning Appeals is following the statutory requirements for a variance, I'm not sure that you'd be able to find a hardship when it comes to property acreage. You know, if you want to do your PD, you have to go find another piece of property that meets the minimum acreage.
Oh, I would agree. It's not going to go through the BZA. Agree.
But yeah, I mean, I think 10 acres is fine. I don't see any reason, and I mean, I don't see any reason not to increase it because, like you said, if we're trying to ensure that these are used sparingly, then it makes sense to increase the minimum acreage.
Give me a number.
20.
Okay.
Like 20.
Jeff?
20.
Jeff, you got a number?
I like 20.
Okay. James?
I'd say 15 or 20.
Kelly?
I don't have strong feelings about it one way or another, to be honest.
That's the first time I've heard you wishy-washy. How about 15 guys and gals? Think you can go for that?
I'm good with it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll compromise.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So we are at we're
I
at
do have a
50.
question though.
Okay, please.
I'm sorry. When you introduced this, you said something about the minimum size excluded buffers and setbacks.
Yes.
So I wanted to understand that a little bit better. And then we talked a little bit about developable land and developable upland.
Upland is what we said. Yep.
Okay, well, I think that we still need to define developable.
Well, that is in most ordinance. I mean, a lot of ordinances out there that I'm sure you've read. I mean,
Well, sure, but
developable is- can you build a house on it or not? That's it.
But could you put a
Well,
park
I mean,
on
you
it?
can
And is that
fill
considered
a
developable?
wetland and build on it with
Oh,
the proper
God.
permits.
I'm not going there.
Well, that's my, I mean, a developer would. You know, most
Well,
developers will not say that there's nothing that's undevelopable because
Give
there
me-
are
give-
avenues to develop on things. So I'm just
Give us
trying to
some
clarify.
language. What language would you put in there?
I think Highland. Highland.
Upland, yeah.
Upland, yeah.
Well, we had upland from Jay. Developable upland. I think that does it for me.
Let's how about native upland, which means there's no filling involved.
I like that.
Developable native upland. Is that where we
Well,
are?
Well, by definition, you're talking about the state of the land when you go to develop it, and it's either upland or wetland. I mean,
Okay.
that's
Well, I agree. So developable upland. Is that
Dan.
where
You
we're-
can weigh in on that, and or
I was just
or we
gonna-
can get an opinion from Chloe.
I was going to provide one point of clarification there. So when we're talking about an undisturbed area, I think it's best to make sure that we're incorporating, to Kelly's point, that it's undisturbed upland or
Right.
undisturbed developable upland. Because Kelly is right, a person could petition to fill a wetland before or after purchasing a property. So that
And then it's
take
upland.
place. So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
the caveat of including the language of undisturbed or, natural.
Undisturbed developable upland. Is that where we are now?
I like it.
All right.
think that gets us done.
Okay.
That works. And I'm sorry, explain to me about the excluding buffers and setbacks.
That's Dan's idea. Dan, can you explain that?
I think that language came more so into a different part that we were talking about, which I believe
Okay.
would have addressed the open space requirements.
Okay.
So that should be towards like not including drainage, ponds, wetlands, roads, access drainage, or utility easements, right of ways, buffers, ditches, setbacks as
I
open
gotcha.
space.
Yeah, we're coming to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That makes
I
sense.
think
I misunderstood what y'all were saying before. I'm sorry.
yeah, I think another point of consideration is, sometimes we'll refer to net upland, and I think it refers to it in a different section, but gross upland, I think is the best way because that kind of goes back to the discussion about undisturbed or disturbed. When you look at the lot as it is with an existing survey, that would be gross. Any development that would alter that would ultimately result in net upland or net loss, net gain for that understanding.
We
But-
use that net versus gross later in later language in this thing specifically.
Correct.
Okay,
And then
so would you
wait,
wordsmith
just,
that and on our next
so
meeting
that-
we should have it?
a point of clarification for my efforts is it would be changed from 10 to 15 acres
Yep.
of undisturbed developable upland.
Undisturbed, yes, correct.
Right. And Kelly, to kind of answer about the buffers, if this is along the marsh and we have a wetland buffer up against that wetland, that doesn't get counted as, that gets excluded from the calculation.
Of the
Does
open
that
space.
seem
Open
right?
space or of the minimum site size?
Minimum site size.
Okay. That
Okay.
I mean that makes sense. I guess if you're just saying setbacks, I think we'd have to be more specific when we're talking about setbacks and buffers. So like we would say wetland buffers don't count towards the minimum site size for a PD. Because I heard Dan saying something different. I heard Dan saying it in the context of what counts towards the required open space. But Jay, you're
Right.
saying the minimum site size for the PD, which makes sense too.
Yeah,
Um,
in this point, I thought we were talking about excluding it from the minimum size to be eligible for a PD district.
I don't think that's where we need to be. I disagree with that, Jay, because if somebody's got some big, beautiful place that they want to turn into a PD, and if a lot of it happens to be, I mean, I agree we don't count it as upland possibly, but I think that should allow them to be able to do a PD there if they can fit the stuff that they need to fit in there. I mean, why have that as part of that? I agree with it in relation to the open space, but not so much in the relation of can we put a PD here based on our size? I mean, if it's on the water and there's a bunch of open buffers and things there, why not let that count?
And what is the width of our buffer is, remind me again, 30 feet,
35
25,
feet.
35 feet.
Yeah.
So that just means you're pushing everything, everything stays back from that buffer, and the developable, that's not considered developable land if it's part of the buffer.
Just a point of clarification on that. There was the amendments to the wetland ordinance that were recently passed that have new parameters for wetland buffers and setbacks. A general wetland buffer will be 75 feet with a 15-foot setback, total of 90 feet. And they range in different wetland types and buffer requirements.
That's state?
That's the town. We just adopted that in November.
Okay.
And I think as it relates to open space, it's fine to not have that included. But the idea of having that be limiting your use of a PD if the property contains some of those is the same as increasing the minimum size for a PD district. and we already went over that, you know?
Well, and would somebody know if you're looking for a piece of property to develop, you're a developer, and your sort of threshold question is acreage, are they going to know what the acreage of a wetland buffer is? Like how much is somebody going to have to spend to figure out if a piece of property is even eligible for a PD?
I just think that we don't include that as part of the determinant if a PD will work on the property. We just include it as part of the determination of what is and isn't considered open space.
All
That's
right,
my
so
opinion.
what I'm hearing from you folks is we're 15 acres of developable, undisturbed upland, and we delete excluding setbacks and buffers. Is that where we are?
Well, and
Because we got to move on.
sure, but I think developable, continuing to use the word developable is problematic because those
Oh,
wetland
boy.
buffers aren't going to be developable.
All right. So upland, undisturbed upland.
Yeah, undisturbed upland. That was
I think
it.
that's done.
Okay, done.
Okay.
So just to confirm, so B1 should read minimum size for a PD district shall be 15 acres of undisturbed upland.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Number 2, I have that you don't have on your screen in bright green. The minimum width PD site should be between two opposite lines of 500 feet. And that came from one of our engineers, which is Jay. To be able to figure this out, you had to know what the minimum size would be. Because if we said the minimum size was going to be 5 acres for a PD, we would have these parallel lines closer than if we had, say, 15. But we have another engineer and veteran builder on our committee. And so I've got this thing here saying, seek input from Hardee. Okay, Jeff, engineer, builder. Jeff is the only one here who's done a residential subdivision, whole subdivision. So if it's 15 acres, what would be the reasonable size of two opposite lines? Or do you
Yeah,
want to get back to us on that?
I think Jay's 500 feet is a little extreme. That's a long ways. I was kind of in favor of the 200 feet, knowing that some of the the land shape here is long, narrow lots, plats. So, 350 feet seems like a nice number to throw out there.
Jay?
I think what we want to try to avoid is having a single way in and a single way out. So that means you need to have enough room to have some sort of a looped road into there. I mean, I guess you could come in with one road and then branch off into, numerous roads in there. But, I keep thinking about this subdivision that's going in across Seaway Road from us, where you got one road in and small lots on either side of that one road. And, I just want to make sure we don't have one of those after another, one after another of, a narrow, deep lot, piece of property with one road coming in. So that's why
Jay, may I make a suggestion, Jay? I
yeah.
think my point on the next line item, not to jump ahead, but my point on item number 3 was we need a minimum of 2 vehicular outlets onto public roads. And that's not addressed in there from what I've seen. And I think it will fix your concern without changing that 200 feet, possibly. And my point in putting that was the exact same neighborhood that you're talking about, that shouldn't have been allowed. And it was, as far as PDs have existed here in our town, and that as far as I've been involved in, there's always been a requirement of 2 vehicular outlets from my memory. And for some reason or another, that went away on that one. And that was one of my concerns when it came up. But do you agree that that would fix that problem without changing the width?
Yeah, the other issue though I think about is if now we're talking about having a commercial, some commercial element of these PDs, you want to have a little more frontage. but I don't know.
Well,
I'm
Jeff
not a,
suggested 350. Is that okay?
that'd be
But-
better than 200. Yeah.
Let me ask this question. So why are we so opposed to one entrance for a subdivision, one exit?
The current regulation is on the next page. It's old
Mhm.
6, current 7, and it was one road access point per 150 parcels, which is ridiculous. And that's the current regulation. And we've got the suggestion in there to change that. So we'll leave that to later on. Let's take one thing at a time. You want 350? You want 200? You want 500? Come on, engineers, what do you want?
And my question that goes along with that is that at its most minimum width in
Yes.
any bit of its length.
Yep.
I mean, if there's one pinch point in an entire run of a long skinny neighborhood that gets down to 347 feet, then they're not going to be able to do a PD because there's one spot at which two lines come together. I think that that's not something that we need to be so crazy about. That I mean, obviously we don't want something long and skinny like that one, but I'd hate to see somebody who has an ideal piece of property all of a sudden have two spots that dip in at the same port and out again that may just become a road through to the back that's not allowable because there's that one little spot. It seems extreme.
I'll have to admit I was reading that wrong. I was thinking of frontage, road frontage. I wasn't thinking
Nuh-uh.
about the whole parcel.
This is the parcel.
Let
So
me ask this
Jeff
question.
and Jay, what do you got? I mean,
Let me
James?
ask this question. So if we go into this detail with how many entrances and exits in a PD, what about the other residential zoning districts? Are we suggesting entrance and exits there as well?
Yes, we will. And that's coming up after this plan development thing, we're taking up residential districts.
I don't think you should have to have it. I mean, I think you should only require 2 entrances for larger parcels. I mean, for for
one per every 40 houses is going to be crazy if there's 400. If there's 400 houses, you're going to have 10 entrances.
No,
I'm again not trying to jump ahead, but
then don't.
Okay.
Hang on.
What is the rationale for having a minimum width in the first place? I know that's a current standard, so I was not privy to the conversation, but it's just unusual, I think.
Was the minimum width already 200 feet?
It was 200.
Can we just do away with number 2 altogether?
Yeah, somebody mentioned earlier that there are a lot of sort of long, skinny parcels, and obviously they'd have to be aggregated. But what if you can only get sort of one of those long, skinny parcels to get your access, and then you've got 20 acres or something behind it? I don't know.
If you've got a lot that's say 75 foot deep, and you got one on each side of the road, that's 150 feet. Then you've got 50 foot of road. I mean, that's 200 feet's a bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there was a point in the neighborhood at which 2 roads passed each other and there weren't houses on the sides, and it could be smaller than 350 feet. You know where I'm going with this? If there's one pinch
Last I
point
heard,
in the
we were
neighborhood.
talking about 200, going back to 200. Are we switched? Jeff, Jay, where are
Jeff
we?
said a minimum of 200. I like a little bit more, but again, I was thinking of road frontage. I wasn't thinking of the the shape of the whole parcel.
So now you're talking about the shape of the whole parcel. What do you want?
I think 200 is good. That's a minimum.
Jay?
All right.
All right. Engineers have spoken. You guys know a lot more about this than I do. Okay, eligible streets. Now here we're getting into major changes. All right. I have absolutely no clue where they pulled this list of roads from. And it as many other things in this, make no sense at all. It says the PD may not have primary vehicular access points with local or unpaved roads. We have local or unpaved roads in this list. We also have one road, which is in Charleston County. We have some roads that are so small, putting a 15-acre PD on them would wreck the neighborhood. So what we've basically done in putting this together, Dan, I, and actually Kelly and Jay, is we have come down to Charleston County, which is Highway 17 North, Door Road, Seaway Road, and Garrett's Bridge Road, and nothing else. Those are all paved county or state roads, and they have commercial stuff on them now. Does anybody want to put any other road in Allendale in there?
I
I
think
have
that's,
no idea what they were thinking when they put this list together.
no.
Well,
I
I don't know why we would limit it. I mean, I think all of these other provisions, particularly the requirement for non-residential use, is going to be limiting anyways, because the commercial in Allendale for the foreseeable future is not going to be viable anywhere except Highway 17.
Correct.
Maybe the others, maybe
Maybe
Seaway
Seaway.
Road,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm not sure this is necessary.
Well,
could
Garrett's
agree with
Bridge
that.
is going to have it because they've got it already at the corner, as you've seen. There's this tennis facility on one, and there's an approved PD on the other side, and there's a commercial thing going in behind it. So Garrett's Bridge, at least the 17 side of Garrett's Bridge Road, is going to be commercial, as is Seaway Road at 17 North. That's for real. What hasn't been commercialized yet is Door.
Here's a question that I'm not necessarily suggesting we change this, but what if 3 went away? What is the point of 3? That's to keep people from exiting out entrances onto small little roads. Is this the idea here?
It's where you're going to put 15 acres on some of these roads some of these roads are gravel roads, which again says may not be on those sorts of roads, and they list gravel roads.
Could we just say state maintained paved roads and be done with the list?
If I may, with a point of clarification in that
Good.
regard. So the town has been discussing with Charleston County Public Works about subdivisions being approved off of county substandard roads or town substandard roads. And it's been a bit of an initiative to work it against moving away from those that have been approved previously. So I think the goal would be to promote more commercial and larger development around already improved roads. I mean, to Kelly's point, there have been some limitations on the size increase. So, some of these areas might be out of that already. And if developers would improve roads with this, I think it could be up to consideration.
You mean
But
the developer would pave the road? Is that what we're talking about?
town could require that, but I just wanted to add a point of clarification on why the intent was to move away from a few of these roads that have been approved with subdivisions and they're currently either substandard or of need of improvement before any kind of additional changes are made.
So mentioning
Well, right
that,
now,
Dan,
we've
what
got
if-
Charleston
could-
County, and they basically are, I mean, they've got that corridor carve out along 17, so that's already commercial. We have Seaway, which we agree has got commercial on it, and Garrett's Bridge. So we're talking about Door, and I guess we're adding county maintained paved roads. There
do
are
we have to
others.
name any roads, or can we just say town maintained paved roads? Will that not work, Dan?
Yeah, it would. I think the key point being, that if a development is approved off of a substandard road, that the road would need to meet town rural road standards or urban road standards, depending on the development type.
So we could say paved or potentially paved or corrected to be paved or something to that effect. I mean, I just think a list of roads is silly when we could just say, here's the road level that we expect you to be on or bring the road to at your own cost to make this work.
Yeah, I will add, it is of importance that the town has identified commercial growth to occur along 17. So if the intent is behind the planned developments to have commercial or non-residential and residential, of course, that can vary. But keeping that in mind as far as where these are taking place. But yes, you do have a point. We could include paved or unpaved or standard roads that are accepted by county maintenance or those that are adopted by the town. That is up for your discretion.
Well,
Well, later on in this draft, there's a requirement for a traffic analysis, right? And so
Correct.
that's presumably going to suggest, if it was on an unpaved road, presumably the traffic analysis is going to recommend that the road be paved. I don't know.
Well-
I kind of agree with James. I'm not sure we need this section at all. I think everything else is limiting enough that we're not going to end up with EDs proposed on some of these roads.
So your suggestion is that we eliminate 3 eligible streets in the whole section?
That would be my suggestion. Yes.
Okay.
Or may I make one, if we just take the roads off and just say the PD shall exit onto major paved road?
Or primary or secondary roads.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
it seems like that would cover it.
Well,
Or
state
if
or
we-
county roads, because the town
Right.
doesn't do any maintenance. It's state or county, period.
What? Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
the real advantage of naming the roads, I'm not a proponent of number 3 at all, but I think the advantage of naming the roads is that we aren't looking at PDs on other roads that we have to even just look at.
Well, I mean, I can just see a PD coming in on Bulls Island Road or something like that.
If we name 4 roads,
That
I
would
mean,
be fun. That's
heard that's the thing.
It ain't happening without armed rebellion of the inhabitants down there. But yes, so your pleasure is county or state paved roads?
Primary or secondary roads. That's how
Okay.
the state defines it.
Is that okay? Jeff, is that okay with you?
I think so, but yeah.
James, okay with you?
Yeah, I think so long as we use the word paved, I don't want to see anything coming off of a dirt road.
If it's primary or secondary, it's paved. It's
Oh, I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, I
Yeah.
got you.
Kelly,
That's fine by me as long as we have a definition or can point to a definition.
And to
okay.
Dan's point, should we also include or brought up to that level at the neighborhood's expense? I don't know if that's worth putting, but I do like the idea of people, companies paying to fix the roads if they're up for a neighborhood to go on it.
And that tells us what standard it has to be brought up to. Because ultimately there's, when the town does grow some more, there are going to be other primary and secondary roads in the
Right.
town.
And if we don't put a list, we won't have to then update it when other
Right,
roads get nicer.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why that list ever got in there, James, but it's there. All right.
Right.
So have you got that, Dan? You sort of got that figured out so you can give us the
Yeah.
basically it's 2 sentences.
Yep, I got it. So I think the intent is eligible streets, and those should be primary or secondary paved roads within the town of Allendale. Is that correct?
Sounds
I don't
good.
think we need the word paved to
No.
Jay's point that if they're paved, they wouldn't be primary or secondary if they weren't already paved, right?
The reason I add
And
the
do we
caveat,
have to say in the town of Allendale? I mean, we don't have any jurisdiction outside of the town of Allendale, do we?
so
No, and we
to-
won't be approving any planned developments outside of Allendale either, so it's a moot point.
Well, to Jay's discussion point, when we were talking about the vested rights, sometimes properties may receive a plan development approval that are within the county and look to incorporate, and those individuals may carry over their plan development to be reinstated by the town and voted on by the town. So at the time of approval, a road may not be within town ownership if it's being actively annexed. So I think the caveat is that the property should be annexed within the town that we are reviewing and approving.
Okay, you're right.
So that's why you want to add within the town of Allendale? That's good. That's fine.
Fine.
Fine with me.
I
right.
also, because our road standards aren't always paved or not always paved, the 2 standards that are typically seen are earthen roads and rock roads. We do have paved roads, but the majority of our roads are earthen or rock.
Yep.
And in our requirements, earthen and rock, or earthen can only serve up to 10 lots. Rock or paved can serve up to larger developments. So I think keeping congruent with our code of ordinance, making distinction between rock or paved, as we have primary roads that are either rock or paved.
So put the word paved back in, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, but when I say primary and secondary roads, that's as defined by the state DOT, you know. But and then all these roads are going to either be county maintained or DOT maintained, right?
Correct. We don't have any, we don't have one piece of equipment. I think we got a lawnmower and all, and that's about it.
So we say paved and then we're covered.
Yeah, that's that
Okay.
too, but we're covered by primary and secondary too, but that's fine.
All right, you got it, Dan?
Yes.
All right, so the next is 4, and basically the only thing we've got in there is a PD shall demonstrate a mixed use concept. That's something we've said a zillion times, but we're just reiterating it there. 5 is the one we need to talk about. Minimum centrally located open space required. Okay, everybody there? Have we scrolled to that? Yes, we have. We're looking very good. Thank you. It was 10%. We're proposing 20%, and we're using gross instead of net. And developable, or you can say undisturbed, I guess, if you want to keep it consistent with everything else we have. And a point that sticks in all of our craws is many of the PDs are counting drainage ditches, right-of-ways, federal property, utility easements as open space, and that's got to stop. The space must be large and usable by the residents of the PD. Drainage ponds, wetlands, roads and access points, drainage and utility easements, right-of-ways, buffers, ditches, federal, state, and local property will not qualify to meet this requirement. We've basically tightened up open space. And I think we're all in agreement about that. This came from multiple people. Kelly?
My only concern is that we're characterizing it as centrally located open space. And I think particularly in larger developments, you want open space dispersed throughout the neighborhood so it's more easily accessible to residents. So I would just remove the reference to it being centrally located. And then it's up to the planning commission and town council ultimately to decide where the open space is located.
Okay, James, what do you think about that?
I like the idea that she just said a lot. And can we put something to the effect of at the discretion of the planning commission or something to that effect? So we have an out to say, no, we don't like that you've just put it around the perimeter where only the people who live around the outside can access it, or something to that effect.
Jay? Jay, can you hear me?
Yeah. I agree with we don't need centrally located in there. I don't know why we need to say approved by the planning commission since everything's got to get approved by the planning commission anyway.
Yep, it does. Jeff, you around?
I can go either way on that. I don't have a hard fast on that.
Will we have a way to, I mean, I've been in planning commission meetings with this current council and before where our hands have been tied because they technically made the amount of feet that they needed. But again, I don't want it just around the perimeter, so only the people in the outermost houses can enjoy that space. We need to be able to have an out and have some teeth to say that we don't agree with where this goes and we want it to go here or there. That was my intent in putting that we had to approve it or something to that effect. And I don't know how to word it, but I don't want to get stuck with something that we all hate, but technically it qualifies.
Yeah, we had a lot of stuff that qualified before, but it won't now, not the way this thing is written.
If we make the change that I suggested.
It doesn't say that the open space is all one spot. It just says centrally located. It could be several spots, but centrally located for everyone to use.
Well, I think I've heard that you want centrally located eliminated, which is fine with me. And
Yeah.
everything has to be reviewed by the planning commission anyway, so I don't
Yeah.
see that being an issue.
There,
Can
I
I
mean,
ask
we
Chloe-
could add in all kinds of standards. We could add in minimum requirements for each minimum size requirements for each open space area. You know, it has to be at least 5,000 square feet or whatever it is, so that you're not ending up with just little slivers here and there. You can require that open space has to be within a certain distance of every dwelling unit in the neighborhood. We can define different types of open space and say you have to have, you know, 2 or 3 different types of open space. So there's, I mean, I think we can be really creative with it.
So
Would
that
you
seems
like
like a
to
come
write
back to it
that?
later.
Kelly, would you like to draft that?
Sure.
Oh,
I like the idea a lot, Kelly, to do that. I think we have to put it in writing though, so we're not stuck in a spot where they say, you know, we got 20%. It's not at all where you'd want it, but we got 20% and we're moving ahead with this
Sure.
and you can't tell us no. But I think, like you said, we need to write it creatively so that we've got some teeth to push our hopes instead of just hoping that they'll go along with us like that last one where they just did us the favor of adding an extra little piece of playground.
Yeah, I mean,
okay. Go
ideally,
ahead, Jeff.
ideally the open space would be out front where, you know, everybody sees it when you drive through and you get home. It's not behind a house stuck away somewhere. So, yeah.
All right, Kelly, would you work with Dan and draft a new section 5, and so we can look at it the next time.
Sure.
All right. Impervious surface limitations, number 6. We had no impervious surface limitations under our current statute, and we definitely need one, and we happen to have a national expert on that in one Jay Reichert. And that is basically what we've got in here. A PD shall be limited to 60% of gross upland, developable, undisturbed, whatever you want to call it, of impervious lot coverage.
How do we define, what is gross versus the net? I don't,
Dan, you want to tackle that?
So kind of as we talked about earlier, certain areas can be converted from wetland or undeveloped upland to upland. So I think the key is making sure that we're looking at the time of the existing conditions, the gross wetland or upland, excuse me, and not the net. Net was there previously. Net implies gain or loss. So if that's a net gain of upland, meaning converting wetlands, or net loss of wetlands, that means creating, or net loss of upland, creating stormwater ponds or retention or man-made wetlands. We're looking at the existing conditions at the time of approval, the gross amount of upland.
Yeah,
With the
Dan
word
educated
native,
me on that.
is
And
that something that is defendable, and is that something that developers would understand where we were going for, and that we would be able to legally hold them to that, or would something like native upland or undisturbed or something to denote that it was initially when they bought the property that's what we meant?
Yeah, I think the language there is open for interpretation. The previous version was net, so I think that implies the net loss or gain of upland. And as we've revised our wetland ordinances in other areas, I think the net gain or loss should not be encouraged for these development plans or strategies.
could we put define gross upland, and do we have a set of definitions anywhere in this thing?
That's a
No,
great
but
point.
we will need to make some because impervious surface is not included either.
Yeah,
Nope.
okay. Well, let's cover that in that section of definitions.
That we
Okay,
can say
Dan, you
gross
gonna put
upland
that in
was
there?
at time of purchase.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Or as according to the existing conditions survey or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Or we can even just say not to include areas that were made upland previously out of wetland, or
Yeah.
something to that effect.
Non-converted upland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, traffic impact analysis. Any PD proposing more than was 80, we said 20 dwelling units should prepare a traffic impact analysis.
Do any of us know how much a traffic impact analysis will cost?
Dan?
The cost,
Yeah, it seems cumbersome to go all the way down to 20. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with it, but I don't know how much this costs, and I don't know what we're putting on people.
yeah, since I'm not in the private sector that would facilitate those, I'm not sure on the cost.
Kelly,
Right.
you got any idea?
I do not know the cost. I agree 20 is onerous.
So what would you prefer?
Well, I would suggest tying it to either average daily trips or peak hour trips because we're talking about if a PD has to be residential and non-residential, that's going to capture all of the trips coming from the development.
I
So
like that idea.
you would put it in the form of trips,
Yes.
which would be an estimate. Would have to be an
Well,
estimate.
yeah, I mean that yes, projected trips. So DOT requires, for example, a traffic analysis for 100 or more peak hour trips, right? And they have a little in the DOT arms manual, they have a little table that gives you examples of what that means in terms of square footage and dwelling units and things like that. Um, that might be higher than what we want. I know there are some communities that do kind of a tiered approach, like maybe more than 100 trips or 100 or more trips, you have to do a full-blown traffic analysis, but less than that, you still have to submit some information. And the town has the ability, for example, to require a traffic study because, maybe the development is at a dangerous intersection or there's already some traffic issues in the area. But yes, I would tie it. I would definitely tie it to trips.
Kelly,
Okay.
can you think of any pre-established tables or charts that we could reference to use to determine how many trips a day, meaning this amount per house, this amount per light residential or light commercial, this amount for restaurants? Is there something that's already exists out there that we could reference to use as a quantifiable number of trips per day?
Sure. I mean,
You know what I'm saying?
industry standard, yeah, it's usually the ITE Institute of Transportation Engineers has a trip generation manual where it's based on data
Perfect.
that they've collected, but it is a standard. I think the table in the SCDOT arms manual is based on ITE data. So I just pulled it up and let me give you all a couple of examples. So 100 peak hour trips. So for single family houses, that's 90 units. For a shopping center, 6,000 square feet. An general office is 67,000 square feet, but a bank with a drive-in is 2,000 square feet. So there's just a range of different size developments, and I just think trips are going to capture this better than dwelling units because if it requires non-residential, if it requires
80/20.
yeah.
So
Well,
we could cut and paste that chart that you're describing into this language, couldn't we?
we could just reference it.
Or reference it, and maybe 100 is more than we want it to be because that's
Mhm.
90 houses.
Yeah.
Maybe 50
Maybe
trips per
80,
day or
maybe 60 or 80.
All right, I've heard 160, 80. Anybody bid me 45?
I got 45.
Okay. Okay. All I've got is the demographics. As you know, when we did the wonderful comprehensive plan, attached to the comprehensive plan, behind it was the demographics of Allendale. And it had a whole bunch of interesting information, and I read it. And Jeff, I know dutifully read it because he asked me why he had to read it. And I could not give him reason because it was boring. But anyway, we have an average of two cars per household in Allendale and 2.5 residents. And that's what I was sort of guessing on as far as trips per day, because I didn't have anything like what is sophisticated as you're talking about, Kelly.
What do other ordinances use as a
that's a good
minimum
question.
trips for requiring an analysis?
I think a lot of communities, and at least in South Carolina, default to DOT requirements just because that's sort of a standard. I'm not sure. I kind of like the idea of using average daily trips, just because your commercial or non-residential use could have a different peak hour than your residential uses.
Hmm.
And so then the question becomes, well, what peak hour, I guess you could say the greater, whatever the greater peak hour is, but I don't know. Is our concern the total number of trips coming out of a development at any point during the day or just during the busiest
All
times
at
of the
once.
day?
Yeah.
The busiest, particularly Seawee Road. I think every one of us on this group is very concerned about Seawee Road.
Mhm.
So would you like to should we reference that DOT table? Are you okay with that, Dan?
Well, it's just, I mean, it's
That's just an estimate of the trips based
Yeah.
Yeah,
on the
but
land
then
use,
we have
but
to come up with this. That's
then we
why I
have
was
to come up with a number of
number, correct. That's
trips
Should
where
we go
we're
we're gonna
just
going.
50 or 60 and be done with it? I mean, 50 or 60 would be 45 houses if that's what we had. 50 maybe would be 45 houses, and that's right in the middle of the 80 and the 20.
Jeff?
That's what I was saying a while ago. I agree.
Okay, so 50 it is. Is that all right?
And reference
All
that ITE chart you were talking about, Kelly.
I mean,
Yeah, so I mean, if somebody's coming in and proposing a PD, they're and having to do a traffic impact analysis, they're going to have a transportation engineer, and so they'll be able, I think, to estimate it just based on the land use mix that the developer's contemplating.
Yeah,
All right.
So
I agree.
Just a point of clarification, that's 50 peak hour daily trips. Is that what I was hearing?
I think we said trips per day, didn't we?
no, not
What
trips
was
per
that?
day. It'd
What
be
was
a lot
that one,
more
Kelly?
than that.
What was the determining factor when you said 100 was 90 houses? That was trips per day, or that was peak hours?
That's PM peak hour trips. So there's AM peak, right, and PM peak. And so we'd have to clarify that. If we're going to use peak hour, we'd have to say, is it morning or evening peak hour?
but how are they going to know that unless they do a traffic study?
Yeah.
Well, they'd have to have a transportation engineer at least kind of give it a cursory look. Or you can get, I mean, well, you have to pay for the ITE manual. So they could look at the DOT manual. I mean, but I would think that anyone who's proposing a PD with two types of residential, commercial on 15 plus acres is going to be a developer. You know what I mean? This is not just going to be somebody, most likely just going to be somebody who hasn't done this before. So I would think that they would have an engineer that they could call.
Well, we're basically
to-
trying to force everybody to do a traffic analysis that is doing a PD now that's 15 acres in size, because that's our major problem right now. Look at Seawee Road again.
Well, that's a really good point, Dave, because if we have 15-acre minimum, that's 40 houses, and that's a lot of homes. Why don't we just say you have to have a traffic study? I mean,
I got no problems with that.
Well, no, I disagree with that, Jeff. If we have 15 acres and we're saying 1 acre per house, that's 15 houses. Right?
that's not a PD.
Well, 10
Well,
houses.
I
and
hope we're
and
not
and
talking
coffee
about
shop.
40 houses on 15 acres.
No, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, that's what you said, Jeff. 40
They were saying
houses
all
and 15
residents,
acres.
but it's not
I
going to
didn't
be all
understand that.
residents. It has to
We're-
be mixed use. So there's got to be something else in there.
Yeah, you got to have something else. So you're looking at residential, mixed residential, and commercial, or something non-residential.
Yeah, it won't just be 15 houses.
Yeah. So my vote is just require traffic study and be done with it. Why? If they're investing all this money in a PD.
Jay?
Yeah, if it's going to be a PD, let's make them all do a traffic study.
Kelly?
It really,
That's
it's not going to be
fine.
that much. It's going to cost the bigger the PD, the more it's going to cost them.
Well, I would agree. What about you, James?
I mean, it's still, I think it's a lot to ask for 20 houses. And now we're even asking for less. So I don't know. I would be pissed if I had to do a traffic study and I was making a neighborhood with 30 houses in it, knowing full well that it wasn't really going to affect the traffic that much at just 30 houses.
Well,
That's
they
my
can go
point.
to the chart and know that they're gonna, be okay. So
Well, if
Well-
we have it based on a trips per day or something, but if we just say everybody has to have it, then they can't. You know?
All right, well, we have a valid disagreement here on this point, so it's not something I want to punt to Dan. I would like to entertain a motion that we do away with the traffic analysis be required of every PD application. And I would entertain discussion on this. If I have a second, we'll go through this and we'll vote. Sounds like we're 4-1, but let's figure it out.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor of a mandatory traffic analysis, say aye.
Aye.
sure.
Aye. Aye. Okay. Against?
No.
Nay.
Okay, that's 3-2. Ayes carry it. We will have a traffic analysis. All right. On 7, a minimum number of vehicular access points. Now, this is where we get back because we were talking about the access points before, and I was like, hang on, we got a
Yeah, we'll
whole
get to it.
section on that. And we've got numbers in there that you may want to discuss. The minimum number of vehicle access points to a public road is 1 per 150 currently. Parcels, and we've changed it to 40. You may want to change that again. And a second or more access points will be required by the Planning Commission if it feels the traffic study or PC Planning Commission perceive a potential safety concern. The safety concern we had recently when someone proposed a commercial change near the junction of 17 and Seawee and Garrens Bridge Road. We can all remember that particular presentation. That is a bad place to come out on. The primary goal of access management will be to balance the need of property access with highway safety and traffic flow. That's what we've changed the words to. Want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Minimum number of vehicular access points to the public road or roads. The minimum number of vehicle access points to the public road is 1 per currently 150. We're suggesting 40. A second or more access point will be required by the Planning Commission. In other words, we can require it if the traffic study, which we're going to now be mandatory, or Planning Commission perceive a potential safety concern. The primary goal of access management will be to balance the need for property access with highway safety and traffic flow. That's sort of where we are.
For discussion,
I-
I think
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think for discussion, this backs up the point of deleting what we had earlier because the traffic study is really going to tell you where your problem points are, and this is going to help us determine how many access points we really need to require. Then we have some data to back up our recommendations.
We have to control access points in traffic. There's no doubt about it. Jay?
I kind of like the way that reads.
Well,
Just
good,
a
because you
question
wrote
of
most
whether-
of it.
That's kind of a question, though. Is 40 parcels the right number?
200 houses were there. That would be 5 entrances. That seems like a lot. I didn't mean to jump ahead of you, Jay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
No, it says a second or more, but it doesn't say you have to have an entrance for every 40 parcels, does it?
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it
road
does.
is 1 per 40 parcels. That's a lot of entrances. I think that, we could say, I am a very strong proponent of it to say minimum of 2, regardless of how many houses there are, because you have a house fire in front of one of the entrances. And if that's the only entrance, everybody's stuck in there till the fire trucks move.
Mhm.
I think that there needs to be 2 in any plan development. And that's how it's been for a long time. Not to say that it's always been right, but I think 1 per 40 is excessive, but I think it definitely should be a minimum of 2. That's my only thoughts.
Well, we're not doing one per, I mean, this is a minimum number of vehicle access points for the for the one access. A second or more will be required by the planning commission if it feels. So second or
Oh,
more is
No,
basically
we
going to
took
be
out
at
if it feels, yeah.
us.
But it does say that if the traffic study or PC,
Perceive a safety concern, yes.
yeah,
So I'm reading a sentence that says the minimum number of vehicular access points to the public road is 1 per 40 parcels. Is that not in there anymore?
That is the first sentence.
That
But
should
then it
not be there.
goes a second or more.
I agree with
Points.
the way you're reading it, James.
Yeah, I
That
do
to
too.
me, that's one. You have to have one entrance for every 40 parcels in the development.
So a 400 parcel development has 10 driveways coming out, or 10 street entrances coming out, which it doesn't need.
Well,
I-
what number
I-
would you
It's
suggest?
impractical.
I mean,
Yeah,
you could eliminate that sentence and just say a
Yeah.
second at this point may be required as deemed by the traffic study or planning
that's
commission.
what it ought to
Or-
say.
or 2 minimum and a third may be required.
Well, it's May. We got to leave that in to the discretion of the planning commission at the time. I don't
Mhm.
want to tie their hands.
But I still want the idea of a minimum of 2 in case there's a house fire and everybody in the neighborhood's stuck.
Okay, so we have, you folks basically want to eliminate the first sentence is Kelly? Is that what you understand?
Ye- Yeah, I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Okay. Jeff?
I don't, it's a little confusing reading the first sentence. So we obviously know there has to be an entrance to the subdivision.
Yes.
So a second point may be required as determined by the traffic study or planning
Yeah,
commission. Whatever.
That's what we got.
I like that.
It's under planning commission control.
Okay. I don't think you really need that sentence at 1 per 40.
Okay.
Well, my concern is future planning. Well, it's not under planning commission control, right? We can make a recommendation, but it's up to the town council. And so I've
Well,
seen,
everything is. Yes.
well, sure, right, but there are interconnectivity is commonly it's a good thing, but it is very common to get public pushback on connecting neighborhoods, right? So this might not be an entrance to Highway 17 or whatever, but maybe it's another entrance into or connection between neighborhoods. And I've seen a lot of times during the political process where the elected officials respond to public concerns and they get rid of that second access into the adjacent neighborhood. So I would feel better having some sort of minimum in here. And I guess, saying all that, the town council can, modify any requirement in here anyways as part of the PD. So maybe it's all a moot point.
Well, it could be, but you're right about that because I was right in the middle of one of those arguments when I lived in Mount Pleasant for 20 years, including the end of my street being blocked off because they didn't want our subdivision emptying out into another subdivision. And it was put there by the town of Mount Pleasant. And I don't care, and it didn't affect me at all, but you are right. You put one subdivision to another subdivision and all hell breaks loose. Pardon my language.
We could have the exits must be onto primary or secondary roads, similar to what we had up ahead at number B3. Right? Do you agree that would solve that?
No, because I mean, if we have a minimum width of 200 feet
That's
to
right.
get the separation distance that I don't know what the county requires, but what DOT requires between streets is way more than 200 feet in a rural area, even in an urban area.
That's right. That's right.
Good, that's the
So-
point. Well made, Kelly. I support James' idea of the safety. I do, but I think I'm just thinking of all the plats that I look at when I drive down CB Road on my Onyx, and there's so many small parcels. If we require 2, you're going to have interest in X's every so often that it's going to be a busy, busy place.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I'd like to have 2, but I wouldn't favor mandating it.
And I guess
think-
it's
Well,
covered
maybe-
under that a second access point may be required at our discretion.
That's what we got right now.
All right. I can get behind that.
All right.
When it
Everybody
says,
okay with that?
when it says a second or more access points will be required by the planning commission, can we make that stick or do we get overruled by town council there?
We can always be overruled, but we can make it our recommendation on a plan development. We'll go to town council like everything else. And it
Yeah.
says will. That's you and I learning Kellyisms. I mean, you will do this. So yes, the planning commission will have that ability.
Well,
But
wait a
only
minute.
if we're
Now
required
that-
to by the traffic study. Should we take out the traffic study part and just say a second access point may be required by the planning commission and just leave it at that?
No, we're not.
Well, I have a concern with saying the planning commission at all because we're
By
not
the
the ones
town.
approving a PD. Yeah, I would say by the town may require or the town council. They're the ones ultimately making the decision. And I don't think we can only lean on the traffic study because, Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, Mount Pleasant, there are plenty of neighborhoods in Mount Pleasant with hundreds and hundreds of houses that have one entrance into the neighborhood, and the traffic study didn't require multiple ones. So I don't feel comfortable leaning on that.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
tie it to that.
Let's
The
leave
DOT
it the
is a
way,
joke
let's leave
given.
that part the way it is, but I agree, maybe we ought to say by the town. rather than
Okay,
by
so
the
a
planning
second or more
commission.
access point will be required by the town council. Is that what you
Or
want
by
to
the
say?
town, or by the town.
All
Yeah.
right.
But can we
All
take
right.
off the part about the traffic survey so we're not tied to that?
We already voted on that, remember? We're going to
No.
have the traffic impact analysis.
No,
But
he's saying
what I'm saying,
the-
I'm just
the-
saying take it off of number 6-7.
Absolutely.
So we could just say a second access point may be required by the town.
Yes, will be
Okay.
required. Yes, can be
Maybe.
required by the town.
Yeah.
All right.
Just as a point of clarification for my notes, is it can, will, may?
May.
Because
May
if we
be
say
required.
must, then it's up to my two minimum, which nobody likes.
Kelly, you say may, is that it?
Yes.
All right, that's it. Yes, ma'am. Get your ruler and put it away. Don't hit me. Okay, now former 7, current 8. This is basically put together by Ms. Cosino, and it's basically correcting our punctuation. Land use types. A PD district may contain any mixture of land use types, including but not limited to single-family residential housing, semicolon, multifamily, comma, residential and manufactured housing, semicolon, general commercial, semicolon, institution or civic, semicolon, and parks. That's how it reads. So it's basically all those land use types we talked about, mixed use, all of them are just listed here.
But institutional still there. Can we get rid of that?
That's government. It's fine.
Well, it's also a place to make tarmac. I don't want that to show up. You know what I mean?
Anybody have an objection to removing institutional?
Well, that's not in
I'm s-
what,
I'm sorry, I was thinking
institution.
industrial. I'm sorry,
Oh,
I read
right.
it to be industrial. My fault.
okay.
All right.
Sorry.
And how do we define the multifamily residential?
More than
More than one
Tell
family?
me,
Yeah,
duplex,
I know, is that duplexes or apartment complexes?
any of the above.
It could be any of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we get to review those and not
Yes,
approve
sir.
them if we want, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But do we have any teeth to not approve it if it's something we don't like, unless we say specifically and you know? Our hands have been tied a whole lot as a commission and a town because of the way things were written.
Okay, and
How does
what-
that come back to our density though? I mean, do we still get to limit the
Yeah,
number
the
of
density's coming up
residences?
next.
Okay, okay. As long as we got some way to not get forced into, a big apartment complex.
I don't think that will happen.
Could we just say duplexes or townhouses and not even
Yes, I
say
think we should.
multifamily? Because we don't want
Uh,
apartment complexes, right?
I think
Does
that'd
the
be great.
how does the
All
zoning
right,
ordinance
so
define that
B,
term?
duplexes, or how do you want to put this in here?
I was just
We're
Kelly, to your
dancing on a
point.
penny, but okay, what do we want?
You asked how the zoning ordinances defines multifamily. Is that correct?
Yes.
We have no definition for what multifamily is in our zoning code.
Okay, that's a problem. So I would say eliminate multifamily, say duplex, townhouse, if that's the will of the commission. But I would also make this an exclusive list because it says including but not limited to.
Yeah, good point.
So if we don't want to see apartments, which I don't think we will because of the septic issue, but we can make it very clear that it's not allowed.
Well, you wrote most of this section, so you want but not limited to eliminated?
Yeah, I don't recall writing that, but
That's
I'll
okay.
take your
Well,
word.
that was already, that's in black, so that was probably already there from before.
Yeah.
Or how about land use types limited to, and then all this list?
Yes.
All right, got that, Dan? Limited to, we'll take but not off.
Yeah, I just need clarification on the other portion. So it's single family residential housing, duplex, townhome,
Manufactured housing.
okay. And then general commercial stays, institutional civic stays, and park stays.
Yep.
Got it.
Well, I have two issues.
Good.
I have an issue with calling out manufactured housing separately. It's a detached single-family residential house. It's just built differently than a stick-built house.
Well, a number of
Agreed.
places have split that out. I mean, number of cities.
Oh, I know.
but-
A lot of places have a separate zoning district for manufactured housing, but I disagree with
Are
it.
we talking about that this could be a trailer park? Is that what we're saying?
Well, we certainly have a lot of them around here.
Why not? We're talking about
yeah.
affordable housing.
I
That's
understand.
affordable
I just want to
housing.
make sure that that's where we're talking about. I didn't know exactly what we were talking about with that. I didn't know if we were talking about like modulars or something like that.
Well, it is manufactured housing.
All right.
But yeah, we're mostly talking about
Well,
trailers.
Modular and
Okay.
manufactured are different construction methods.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I'm
how do
also
you
gonna
want to
take
handle this,
issue-
Kelly?
Well, let me also take issue with parks. We're requiring 20% open space.
Yeah.
So do we want to then consider parks as a non-residential land use that would make something qualify as a planned development? So essentially you get a residential uses and parks. I mean, is that okay? I mean, and it would have to be above and beyond the 20% that we're already requiring.
Correct. Park is park.
So I'm just calling that out. I mean, is that what we want? Because that's kind of, I see it as kind of a loophole, right? If we're trying to get PDs to meet the state requirement and case law for being mixed use, I'm not sure that parks meets that. But I mean, that the end result is not necessarily bad development. I'm just pointing it out.
So you would like parks eliminated as one of the mixed use options?
Yes, I would.
Jay,
What?
do you want to eliminate parks as one of the mixed use options? That's all.
We've already said that they have to have 20% open space.
Correct. This has got nothing to do with it. This is the other type of mixed.
What's the downside of having a park in addition to the open space? And how do we define parks? Is that a playground? Is that a more open space? I don't know.
I think it just gives somebody an out to not have to do one of the other things because they threw a really small little park in there. Is that where you're going with that, Kelly?
Okay.
Yeah, and because I don't think that the Planning Act and the Sinkler case defines plan development that way. Like I think it's contemplating uses, residential uses, offices, institutional. I don't think it's contemplating parks as one of those uses.
Okay, we got three of you. Jeff, are you still with us? Or
I
have
am.
you-
I'm a little confused. I mean, but I wasn't looking at it as an out. I was looking at it as a positive, having a park as part of the PD, which I kind of like the idea. But I see the out, and I got to think about that a little bit.
It could be included, but it doesn't have to be included.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't understand why. So what would they be substituting the park for? It
A
would be just
non-residential
resident.
use.
commercial, industrial, institutional, civic, whatever.
I
Yeah.
see.
One of the
Okay.
other units. Now Kelly's gonna help Dan write this the apportionment, but most folks out there, as York County has done, is required that you have to have an 80-20. Some allow a 90-10. Some of them require 75-25 as to the percentages of the mixed use.
Mhm.
So this under, let's say, York County, the park would have to be 20% of the plan development, and the plan develop and the residential section would have to have 20% free space, open space. There'd be a whole lot of open space there.
But couldn't they just call that 20% open space a park and then be out of the requirement of hitting a
No.
multi-use?
The park is a park. We've got actually a ordinance on that now.
I think we take the word park out. There's so much ambiguity there, it sounds like to me.
If it doesn't meet the definition, our definition of mixed use, then yeah, we should probably just take it out. And if somebody wants to
Okay.
give us more open space than the 20%,
So I
they
hear
can still do that,
James,
right?
Right.
Jay, and I heard Kelly against it, and I will support that. So Jeff, is it okay if we take out parks?
Totally fine.
All right, done.
Good.
Moving on.
Just a point
Number
of clarification.
Old 8, number 9.
One
Oh, you
second,
wanted
Dan has a question.
clarification?
Dan, you got something?
Just kind of want to go back to that because we talked about one section and then moved to parks there. So manufactured housing, is that staying with multifamily, residential, or not multifamily anymore, duplex townhomes and manufactured housing, are those staying in the same line?
I didn't hear anything against that.
Kelly had mentioned at one point taking out the manufactured housing because it's housing, right? Do we need to
Yeah.
call it out specifically?
Just
Yeah,
take it
and-
out.
And another thing is if we're requiring 2 or more dwelling unit types, we need to make sure that there are enough options too for somebody to select from, right? So do we need to, if we have single family detached, duplexes, townhouses, manufactured housing or not, is that sufficient for the market here? I mean, or do we need to keep the way it has now, single family detached, large lot and small lot? Do we need to keep that distinction as well, just to give people more options that are viable in the market here?
We don't have the detached large lot or the single family detached small lot. They are X'd out.
I know that. I'm saying, do we put that back in? Because is there a market in Allendale for duplexes and townhouses?
I can't answer that
If we're-
question.
If we're requiring 2 or more types of dwelling units, we need to give people options for the types of dwelling units. And if duplexes and townhouses don't work in the market, then then we're not going to get any PDs at all.
Well, wait a minute. I'm a little confused. So is it not a large lot and a small lot, but both being single family? Aren't they 2 separate uses, or is that one use?
Those are both single family houses.
Well, the revisions here, they'd be the same type of use, but what's crossed out, I think it made them 2 separate uses.
Well, yes, that's how we got the alternative of, we have the single family house. There's got to be another alternative. So we had come up with multifamily residential, and if you want to say duplex and so on and so forth, and manufactured housing. We're just giving them choices. We're not saying small, large. That's not really our business. We've defined the minimum lot size, and
yeah.
what they do with it is their business.
Dave, my head's thinking I've been a part of this a lot where you have a subdivision that may have estate lots, and then you have cottage lots, and then you have townhomes as well. And it's kind of like you can start as a young family in a townhomes, move up to a cottage lot, then live in the estate lot. So all three of those I kind of look at as three different opportunities in residential.
You're talking Snee Farm. Yes, I understand what you're talking about. How would you write it here?
Yeah, we'd have to write it
Well, I think
in such a way that it made sense.
the large lot, small lot.
But where do we define large and small, right?
Boy, that we're getting into a really tough time if we're going to define large and small.
Yeah.
The ordinance does reference 1 acre per dwelling unit previously, so large or small, I think that it's 1 acre.
But
One
we can
acre is
define
the
it.
small.
I
Yeah.
think 1 acre is for all the lot sizes, but we can define that. But I do think, Jeff, to what you were just saying, I think that's having those different cottage lots, estate lots, it goes back to the statutory definition of PD that requires housing of different types and densities. So I think that's consistent with the statute, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a given. I mean, that's
And
how
a way
it's
to
done.
get different types of residentials without duplexes or townhouses that might not sell in our market. Is where you're going, Kelly?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. If we can define it easily enough.
Yes. Yeah.
In terms
which
of
I think we
sizes of
can.
lots. Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Our lots is a 1 acre minimum, then your small lots are 1 acre, your estate lots are greater than 1 acre or 2 acres, whatever. But
We'll let the developer figure that out. I mean, we're saying
Well-
1 acre, and we shouldn't get any further. I don't think we should be getting any further into it than that.
Unless they want to say that 1.05 acres is an estate lot, because we're saying bigger than 1 acre. That's a dangerous thing to say.
They got to sell it.
But what my point is, if we say 1 acre lot is the small and anything bigger than 1 acre is the big, we're going to have a bunch of 1 acre lots on one side and a bunch of 1.05 acre lots on the other side, and nobody's going to be able to tell the difference, and it's not really going to be mixed.
Do you see anything in here that says that? All I see is
Well,
1 acre. I
and
don't
then
see
that-
large lots. I don't see small lots. I don't see any of it. Let's take it out.
Kelly's point was, if we use that as two different types of residential, then we don't have possibly unsellable duplexes forced into a spot. But are we really establishing two different types of residential if the lots are so close in size that nobody can ever tell the difference that there's two different types? Well, then
I
why
don't
even put
follow.
it in there?
I think what we're saying is take unstrike out the language, put back the language that says single family detached large lot or estate lot, whatever we want to call it, single family detached small lot, add duplexes and townhouses perhaps, and then somewhere else define a single family estate lot is a minimum of 2 acres, and a cottage
That's what I was
lot
going.
is a half acre or something, and so that you have those the distinction, so you maintain the distinction between those two.
And that's where I was going with that. There was a minimum lot size for an estate acre that was more than, say, 2 acres, or it was a minimum of 2 acres.
Jeff, do you want to get into defining the size of lots besides 1 acre?
We have to remember what the other residential zoning districts we have are and why we're at a PD and not one of the other zoning districts. So we're trying to be creative here. So hopefully a developer would see that, and if he's going to go into a PD, then we just needed some wordage that says something about different size of lots is good and some mixed non-residential.
That's
I don't
what makes it mixed use.
That's right.
That's what we're defining, is calling it mixed use. So
When we get into residential districts, we are going to have large lot residential. I suspect and small lot residential district. We're going to have at least 2 residential
Mhm.
districts, and it's going to be on lot size. We sort of all know we're going there. And then we've got the town thing. There'll be 3 types of things where most people live. Most people will not be living in these planned developments because, as we started out in that first sentence, use it sparingly and don't use it when you're going to do anything else. We only have 2 of the, 28 that have been approved. PDs in here that are truly PDs.
Yeah.
We just don't have them. We're trying to define them, but most people are going to be living in residential districts, and that's what we're going to put them in as a planning commission unless people really come up with a mixed use.
Well, to that point, are we spending too much time talking about this?
I
Yeah.
You
think
know what I mean?
so.
If do we just go the simple route and say you have to have 2 dwelling unit types, you have to have non-residential, you have to have 20% open space. Show us a plan.
I mean, yeah, and leave, that's clean, Kelly, and then have some interpretation, but 2 different dwelling types would mean small and large in my mind.
Mhm.
Well, a duplex and a single family dwelling, there's 2 different types. Condo and whatever. We could come up with examples all night long, but if we want to put them all on here, we can, but again, things get pretty long.
Well, I just meant in general for the whole PD thing. Why, if I feel like maybe we're making this too complicated. If we really aren't going to get very many PDs because it's going to require 2 types of residential and commercial, do we just cut a lot of this and just be simple with kind of the basic? You got minimum 15 acres, 2 types of residential, non-residential, 20% open space, and not be so specific with the rest of it.
Gee, I've got no way of answering that. They've got a lot of PDs in Mount Pleasant because people understand, well, the Planning Commission understands what a PD is. So they've got some good ones like Ion and Sneed Farm and a whole bunch of them I can name. We haven't had any valid ones out here except 2, and they're small. So I can't tell you. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's coming down the pike, but if people continue with this residential district trying to call them a PD, the answer is no, we won't have many of them.
Yep.
I would like to see more PDs out here because I would like to see, as we all agree on, more businesses, small businesses out here. That is how the town is going to develop a decent income.
So
You don't need a PD for a business, though.
No, you don't.
I mean,
You need the commercial district, and we'll get to that too.
I'd like to be clear on the part that was just discussed. So, Kelly, were you suggesting that it should be revised to land use types of PD district must contain 2 dwelling types, 2 residential dwelling types, a non-residential land use, and 20% open space, and stop?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I was suggesting that that's the whole district, right? That we get rid of all the rest of this stuff. But I think I'm not sure that there's support for that. But yes, I think that potentially makes sense for this paragraph 8 is to just be that simple with it. And then we have some flexibility to decide or the town has flexibility to decide what constitutes 2 separate dwelling types.
Except we don't need to talk about but the 20% because we've already done that.
Right. You don't need to put that in space.
We've already done that.
Yeah.
That was number 5.
And this is where we would put that percentage, if we're going to do that you referenced from York County, where we would say, at least
80-20 is what they've
80,
got.
20, 90, 10, whatever the number is.
Well, I can't tell you. They're using 80-20. They're doing it to keep people from, what can we say, cheating, I guess, in that a person can put in a 1 barber shop and 500 houses and call it mixed use. So that's
Exactly
what York County's doing. I understand that. Everybody's doing the same thing. No one's saying that you can get away with 1 barber shop and 500 houses and call it a PD. So that's why they've got the 80-20. But is 80-20 fixed by, no, it's 90-10. I've seen 25-75. Jeff, what would you like for a percentage?
I mean, that's really hard to feel. 80-20 seems right to me, but Yeah, real quickly, I read through the Chapin PD today, and I really liked how they describe it because it's somewhat vague, but it's very clear that what they're looking for. They're looking for mixed use development, residential and non-residential. And I think hopefully that's where we're going, but I'm with Kelly. It seems like we're getting very deep in the woods here.
Yeah. Then the initial version of this thing actually came from the person who was our prior planner, who wrote the Chapin PD.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yep.
just a point of
That's where it came
clarification.
from.
Point of clarification on that, Chairperson. This version was drafted and approved in 2023. Rico did not join town until
Oh, no, I'm talking about the suggestions that I brought to this thing. Yeah, Rico had a lot of suggestions, and he did the entire Chapin PD thing. He did a lot of good work. We've copied many things that Rico has done as a consultant. So you're right. Chapin's got a good one.
Yeah.
They're also a very different town, as he pointed out, and I'm sure Dan knows, than Awendaw. Very different.
So,
All right, so where have we gotten?
yeah, just to go back to the current revisions as proposed, if I'm not mistaken, would be single family residential detached large lots. Is that correct?
With a number on it.
Yep. So that would relate to estate lots being 2 acres.
Yep.
And then single family, or not single family, multifamily, but label it duplex townhomes and just those 2 types. Is that what I've been hearing?
Kelly, you're the expert on that.
Well,
You
Kelly
wanna
had taken that off and just called it 2 separate types of dwellings.
Okay. Is that
Yeah.
Right, Kelly? Am I speaking out of turn?
Yeah, no, I think
Okay.
that simplifies it. And
Yeah, it does simplify it.
You don't have to put in the
then
large
we're not
lot, small
defining,
lot.
yeah, then we're not defining lot sizes.
Yep.
perfect?
I
So
like that.
instead of it being A, B, it's just A, 2 dwelling types. It would then be non-residential use, and then C, 20% open space or open space.
Well, we've already done the open space. It's
Yeah, I
under
don't think this is the place we
Yeah.
talk about open space.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because we're talking about land use types. So yeah, I think just an A and B there. But I do,
And
well, maybe next time we can decide what the percentage should be. We can all just kind of give
Yep.
that some thought.
I think, well, we've got more text in here, but I'd like everybody to think about that percentage because we're going to have to fix it because that's the only way to keep people from cheating by putting a very small percentage of one type of a mixed use
I'm fine with 80-20, just fine with 80-20. What about everybody else?
Fine.
what's the percent of?
Yeah, is it geographical or dollar amount? What are we talking?
They're
Acreage?
talking about land,
it would have to be
land
percentage of the
area.
land.
Land
if you-
area.
Acreage. Yeah.
You got 2 acres is one and 8 acres is the other.
Yep.
Or it could be more even to each other, but 20 is the minimum that either of the two can be, right? That's what we're saying.
That's
Yes.
that's what York said. Yes.
Right. Okay. It sounds good.
All right. Okay. 9, maximum residential density. We had come in at 1 unit per acre. It was in our current thing 4. I understand that town council has changed that, but they didn't change it in this ordinance. We have many issues in our ordinances where one ordinance is contrary to another. We're trying to do our best to make sure that we're all on the same page in the ordinances, and that's what Dan is focusing me on. But anyway, we said 1 dwelling unit per acre. Anybody have an issue with this?
I think it's way too low.
Okay.
I mean, if we're talking about wanting to encourage affordable housing, you're not going to get affordable housing at 1 dwelling unit per acre. And there's no, I mean, we we want to incentivize to some degree people doing a PD because that gives the town a little bit more control over it. And one unit per acre is not an incentive, especially if you can, the density is higher in the other residential districts.
We haven't set them yet. It's currently
Well,
lower.
the current,
The current is, okay, we understand the current's too low, but we will be writing the residential districts. And they're, yes, I strongly suspect they're going to be significantly larger. What would your pleasure be? What would you suggest in a maximum residential density in a PD?
We had talked
I
about
mean-
cottage lots before. I wonder what those are typically. Kelly, you had mentioned that.
I mean, my answer to this would be 80-20 would be 20% non-residential. And then some division of the 80% on half acre lots and the other percent on minimum 1 acre lots. I don't think you want
Right.
to, that way you get your three uses there.
We do half and half of the residential should be at least one.
I need to think about that, but I mean, yeah, I think if you're going to do 1 acre lots, that needs to be in one of the other residential zones.
It will be, probably,
Mhm.
but that will be at your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.
Or if it has to have multifamily, then multifamily it's kind of hard to call multifamily on 2 acre lot.
So what would you like in there? Do you want a half an acre?
I think a half acre is reasonable, Dave, but I don't want the 80% to be all half acre.
Mhm.
That would be a minimum size. We're not talking about maximum size. Maximum size could be, the whole thing can be the developer's mega mansion for all I care, but we need
But I
to
think
have
what
a
Jeff's trying
minimum
to say
lot
is that
size.
he
Right now,
doesn't
we've
want
got lots
all the
down to
same.
1/4 acre. Do you
Yeah.
want 1/4 acre lots? We gotta
No.
put a minimum somewhere.
This is overall density, right? This is what it averages out to.
No, this is,
No,
we're
this
gonna,
is
This
Should be
is-
the maximum residential density, if I'm not mistaken, by the discussion.
correct.
yeah, that's overall, isn't it?
so is
Yep.
that gross density over the whole site? How are we calculating this?
Dwelling unit per acre, I would think would be 8 acres. You got 8 dwelling units.
Okay, so that's gross.
But
And
what, yeah, well,
including
what about the
including all the
roads?
open space and
about-
all that stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
20% open space.
And your non-residential.
You absolutely right.
So that's what I'm saying. Make sure I'm clear. So let's say we have a 10 acre subdivision. 50, well, let's do 10 acre. I know it's 15 is our minimum now. 10
Okay.
acres, 2 acres of non-residential use. Then there's 8 acres of residential use that needs to be split up in say minimum half acre lot, some percent of that. Maybe that's 30%. And the other part of that is a 1 acre lot. Otherwise, you're gonna have what you have right now. You're gonna have all these half acre lots, PDs with a
Well, I
little
wish we had half acre lots. We got 1/3 and 1/4.
Yeah.
fair.
But your point, Jeff, is that we minimize the percentage of it that can be anything smaller than a 1 acre, just so we
Right.
don't end up with a bunch of things that
Right.
are really small. Yeah, I agree with that. But I also agree with the point where we need the potential to have some smaller spots, because if we're going to put townhouses, you can't have houses connected with one in the middle and there would be a full acre for that one. I mean, in the layout, obviously we're not talking about lot sizes, but it's going to get tricky to even keep up with that density at some point.
Well,
Yep.
what Charleston County's done on its Highway 17 plan, and about 1/3 of Highway 17 in Allendale is controlled by the county, is 1 acre lots, but they can be subdivided into 2 principal dwellings. So they're basically half acre lots. That's what the county will be doing all along 17. We like it or not. I don't have a problem with half acre lots. It's just, we get below that, we get real septic issues. And that's
Mhm.
essentially what we're all concerned about.
Could there be a sliding scale where if this thing is 15 acres, the smallest that it can be, 1 acre lots is plenty? I mean, I'm sorry, if then we could do something towards the half acre. But if it's a 60, 100 acre place, there could be, and if some of this goes down to half acres, it could be a mess. You
I
know,
hate
I
to
mean,
put together that table, but you're
I
welcome to
know.
try.
I don't know. It's just a thought.
Jay,
Obviously,
Jay, what's your pleasure?
I'm getting lost in all this.
Well, we're just trying to figure out what the smallest lot should be.
no, we're trying to
Yep.
figure out what the density should be. That's
Yeah,
a
I was
different
just gonna-
thing.
It's the density. It's not the
Well, if you
lot
know what the
size.
smallest lot is, you can figure out the density. But if you don't know what the smallest lot is, you got a problem.
Well, no, you're going to have some small lots, but then you're going to have some that are over an acre for it to average out to 1 per acre.
If we stay at 1 per acre, yes, sir.
Well, maybe we need to figure out how to write one dwelling unit per acre so that it's somewhat understood is that you can have half-acre lots, however, the total number is one dwelling family per acre.
Well, I think that's the definition of the word density, right? I mean, that's the whole point of this line, is that we are just establishing overall parcel size to overall dwellings, not necessarily dictating any lot sizes at this moment.
Or just
But
say
this-
1 dwelling unit per acre. That is what we say. That's it.
But
As
right
a-
but
now.
is
as a
that
density.
is that 1 acre? I mean, are we including the roads in that? Because the roads take up space too. The detention ponds, et cetera, take up land too. So are we talking about over the gross area of the parcel?
Well, that's how it was originally done. But remember, the original language, which is still the current language, is 4 dwelling units per acre, which we would all agree is too many septics.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can read this right now. It says maximum residential density of units of one dwelling unit per acre.
Correct.
To me, that sounds like you could have 4 half-acre lots and 4 2-acre lots, and you still get your density of 1.
That's right. We're
Right.
just talking overarching
Exactly.
density.
Yeah, that's correct.
But we understand that, but that needs to be very clear to someone else that may not be thinking like this.
Dan, how would you do that?
I mean, I think it's difficult to say what different competency levels will be, but to the extent
Ooh.
of where we are now, if we're requiring a traffic study for planned developments, you'd have to assume that these folks are pretty competent in what they're doing and they'd understand what max density is. I think where we've seen these go wrong is the diversity in lot sizes, right? So we'll see a lot of 1/4 acre lots kind of sporadically mixed around, and then maybe one or 2 larger lots. So I think it goes back to the percentage analysis of that. But from as it's written, from my mental standpoint, as Jeff explained it, that's how I view it, right? So we'd have a variation of smaller lots and then a variation of larger lots. They all need to equal 1 dwelling unit per acre of what we've determined is that acreage to be for this parcel. I think the
Right.
distinction comes in with, are we referring to the gross undisturbed developable area, or are we referring to the entire parcel?
Right.
Jay, how would you what would you favor?
I mean, I don't, I would go for whatever reduces the density. I mean, yeah, I'd rather have the low density. So but I'm willing to compromise on that. Are we? I think Dan made a good point. Are we talking about gross area or the developable upland as we've talked about before? And the last thing is, do we need a absolute minimum lot size in here, or is that part of our review of the PDs that are submitted?
I think we need an absolute lot minimum size, Jay, to answer that
Agreed.
question. And I think that that 80-20 or whatever we were talking about should be probably listed somewhere close to this, if not in this line item. Because I don't know where else it is. Is it in there anywhere right now, Dan, that the 80-20 thing we were talking about, or the percentage that needs to be residential versus, is that in at all?
No,
or
it
we-
isn't. I
No,
brought
it's
up that,
not.
I brought that up as a point that
Okay.
you folks need to decide. And
Yeah.
by next meeting, I would like each one of you to weigh in on that. That's why I read the whole thing from our friends in York County. No, it is
Yeah.
not in there.
Unless we all just already agree that it's 80-20 and we don't have to come back.
I got no problems with York County.
And where do we put
80-20
it,
sounds good to me.
I don't speak for anybody else.
Kelly?
Okay, so
That's fine.
Where do we
Okay.
put
where
it?
are we
Reasonable.
with 9 then?
Yeah.
Well,
We'll do the 80-20, fine. Dan, you got that. And the maximum density, if we're talking about 1 unit per acre, and we could say minimum lot size of a half an acre or something, so we don't get these quarter acre lots with septic problems.
that's great.
Is that okay?
Except Kelly's first point was that 1 acre was too restrictive, right, Kelly?
I think so.
And not lending towards affordable housing.
Right.
Well,
I
that's
just
what
come
the
back
half
to
I mean,
that
an
if-
because I know
acre
that's
is.
why she brought it up.
I mean, if it will help to allow smaller lot sizes, half-acre lots, but still, I still think 1's low. I mean, you think on a 30-acre parcel, you're getting, assuming we're doing gross density, you're getting 30 houses and some commercial. I don't know that those are going to end up being terribly affordable.
Affordable. Yeah.
So
What if we do 2 and then we work on our minimum lot sizes to help with the septic problems?
I think your minimum lot's got to be half an acre. You can't
I
get us.
agree. You go below
Yeah.
half an acre.
Right. I just
No.
mean, what if we say 2 dwelling units per acre, and then we use the minimum lot size to discourage a bunch of little cookie cutters right against each other? With your half-inch minimum lot size, Jeff.
I see Kelly's point. It's a really good point. It's a really good point.
Agreed.
If you do 2 dwelling units per acre, her 30-acre parcel, that is 60 homes, 60 families on 30 acres. That's essentially half-acre lots. Correct? Well, minus your non-resident.
Right. And so if we're requiring, if we have some sort of mix requirement so that they can't all be half-acre lots, you're not going to hit that. You're not going to hit that maximum density, but it gives you some flexibility to go beyond 1 unit per acre.
Yeah, but as developers like to sell property in maximum densities is their number.
Right.
but I would make sure that we keep in mind too that our open space requirements differ from some of these other planned developments that have been approved in the past, where drainage features, buffers, road right of way, HOA open space, like all of that is incorporated in their open space. If we're saying that the open space now is separate from that, then the density could be influenced by your open space requirements, where you need to fit the non-residential development, and then also where you need to fit your residential development, not to mention roads, and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So we're
So
all in agreement that we don't want to go below a half because of the septic issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we have to do much more. I mean, if you want to have larger lots in there, you can put 1 acre dwelling, which is sort of the average, which would mean that they'd have to have 1 acre or 1.5 acres, and they'd have half acres. We could say 1 acre per dwelling unit with a minimum of a half an acre lot or something. That would give us a minimum. I just don't want to go below anything that's going to put us in with what we got now, which is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we also have to think about duplexes. I mean, if I don't know if somebody would build duplexes, but those are 2 dwelling units
They are.
on a half-acre lot. I mean, so are we requiring an acre for a duplex? You're requiring half a
1
you
acre
know,
duplex.
1
Per-
acre for a duplex. Yeah.
Okay, I got
So-
an idea just to throw out here and to further complicate things, but
That's what we
Our-
need.
our agricultural residential calls for 30,000 square feet, which
Yeah,
is
half
basically,
acre.
well, no, that's 7/10 of an acre.
3/4.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you were to use that as our minimum, then you would be saying 1.4 dwelling units per acre.
Yeah, I thought about that too.
All right.
Yeah, you just say 1.4, 1.5 dwelling units per acre. Because a PD already, I mean, you're losing 20% to the non-residential.
And 20% to open
To the open
space.
space, yes, that by design. Correct.
And if we're trying to give some people some leeway to do these PDs, then maybe we do need a little bit more than 1 per acre.
So you want 1.4? Is that what I'm
I'm not
hearing?
saying I'm wanting it. I'm just throwing this out for discussion.
Well, we got to go somewhere. Team.
Well, that's kind of addressing Kelly's concerns, I think.
All right, 1.4. What do you think about 1.4, Kelly?
Oh, it's better than 1.
Mm.
I would
Very
say
good.
2. I mean, the current ordinance is 4. 2 is half of that, which is a significant decrease. But if
I
the
like
group
2.
is prefers 1.4, 1.5, I can get on board with that.
I could
Yeah.
go for 1.5,
Jeff?
yeah.
1.5, Jeff?
That's fine. I'm just sitting here in my head as a little bit of developer background. If you got 20 acres of land you're developing, 40% of it is going to non-residential and open space. That doesn't leave me a whole lot of property for homes. So you certainly don't want, I think 1.5, 1.4 would be maximum.
Okay, well, you're the only one here who's put together a planned residential development. So what number would you like?
For now, until I can really sharpen my pencil when I'm a little clearer, I think that's a good number for now. And we might need
1.5?
1.5. I like 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5.
All right, 1.5 it is. Dan, you get that?
Maximum residential density of 1.5 dwelling units per acre.
You got it.
Is that
And
correct?
then where do we
And a
put the
minimum lot
percentages?
size, and a minimum lot size of a half an acre.
Yeah, and where do we
Correct.
put that and the percentage of residential versus? Do we
Yeah,
make
so-
another number on this?
I wonder if it may be more prudent to include in a different section.
Yes.
Because
You put it where you want, and always we want to see the 80-20 when we see this next version at our next meeting. That's all.
Okay. And just for my clarity, the 80-20 is referencing because there's a lot of numbers, terminology kind of
The types of mixed use. It could be 80 commercial and 20 residential, or 80%
No less than
residential.
20% of any one use. Is that a better
Yep.
way to say it?
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
I suggest you just copy what they've got out of York County. I mean,
Can I
it's
interject one quick
clear.
thing? Let me interject one quick thing. Let's take a 20-acre subdivision. 40% goes to non-residential and open space. That
Yes.
leaves me 8 acres. Is that right?
Correct.
Right.
That leaves me 12 acres to develop. Leaves me 12 acres to put houses on. So if I maximize that at half-acre lots, that's 24 families in 30 acres. Just so we all have a reference point.
Okay.
Except if we say half acre lots, then it's
No,
not.
that is
That's
half.
the minimum.
That's
yeah.
that's
Oh, I see.
that is at half-acre lots.
Yeah.
Sounds like we're keeping Allendale rural.
Well, we're trying
All right.
to. All right.
All right. So you can add those in for us, Dan, and we can look at them next time.
The lot requirement sizes.
Yeah.
And
We got a
those
whole lot more to
are-
go, and it's stinking 8:45 almost.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
need for my
Remember who was
record-
going to start wordsmithing on page
I
1?
know.
I know. All right. Moving on, team.
Could I
Number
have
10.
those? Could I have those lots again for my record to make sure it's accurate?
1.5 dwelling units per acre with half-acre minimum lot.
Got it.
And no one use can be less than 20%. Got
The 80/20 is another thing, but yes.
Well, where?
Let,
We had said it was
if
going to be in
if
here. Sorry,
it can
go
be
ahead,
anywhere
Cal.
you want
sorry.
it. Doesn't matter. We're going to put an 80. I want Dan to put it in where it fits the best in this whole
Yeah,
thing.
I
We
like
can do
that. Where
that
it
the
makes the
next
most sense.
time. All right.
The
Number
if
10. Moving
it,
on.
okay,
A
I'll bring
PD
it up
shall
next time.
remain active following its approval as prescribed by the vested rights. It should say vested. It says vest.
Yeah, that was on my list.
Of the section of the zoning code. Following expiration of the vested right, plan development is subject to review by the town council. We're basically telling if it expires and they would like to move on, they've got to go to the town council. And that's how it's going to be anyway.
And this is after their second renewal.
If, yes, if they apply for the second renewal, it's whenever it ends. It could be at 2 years, 3 years, 4 years.
Okay, because it's considered the same vested right, even if it gets
Correct.
extended. Okay,
Same
understood.
vested right.
Yep. All right, good to go.
So that's it. And the next one, 10, we've eliminated because OCRM has been redefined and it's state law and it doesn't matter what we say. They have setbacks, which we have, and they have impervious surfaces in the whole bit. So actually we are not in concert with the OCRM at the present time, but it doesn't matter because we don't need to talk about it. They control that land. We don't.
But are our minimum setbacks from the OCRM good enough for us, or would we like them increased in PDs to keep people away from there a little better?
We've got a good setback, and we'll be getting
we?
to that too.
Yeah,
But we need it in the PD because those aren't part of the PD, or is it in a different line coming up?
Different line coming up.
Okay, good deal.
All right, traffic impact analysis. We've already done that, and Dan just copy what we did with the last one. We'd gone from 80 to 20, and we've already gone through that. We've gone through the units, and you can just put the same stuff in there or throw it out. The next one is tree preservation. The town council Dan, has it been just one reading or two so far on tree preservation?
Of the amendments, it was just the first reading.
Okay. Anyway, we're deferring to the town ordinance, the town council's ordinance, because if they're passing an ordinance, which they're in the process of doing, we ought to stay out of their way. Because whatever we say isn't going to make any difference anyway. So it's just referring here to the town preservation section of the town's code of ordinance, deferring to the town council. Basically what it says, if you look at the next one, which is 14, former 12, clear cutting, what it has done is integrate what the town is doing. They're protecting certain pines. Before, our ordinance only protected hardwoods. As you know, most of the native, shall we say, trees around here have been cut down hundreds of years ago. The British used them a lot for masts on their ship, particularly the longleaf pine. Most of our town, Allendale, has been replanted in pines, which is why you've seen great clear cutting, because they don't have to touch an oak because there's no oaks in there. So what the town has done is that they put in a protection now for larger softwoods. So it's basically impossible to clear cut a place if certain of the big pines are protected. That's what the town's done. And the town has precedence over us. Anyway, clear cutting of the existing tree canopy, it had said pine tree canopy, period, is prohibited for hardwoods of 12 inches except for gum and water oaks. This is verbatim out of what the council's doing. Or pines or other softwoods of 24 inches diameter at breast height, but may be permitted on a case-by-case basis if landscaped 35 foot, it had been 25 foot, undisturbed buffer, except for required ingress, egress, those would be roads, is employed along all project exterior lines. Otherwise, clear cutting is not allowed as part of the PD. Basically, we're following town council and we're making it darn hard to clear cut a place. Questions? All right.
We're saying that you can't clear cut unless you put a big buffer around, and we say yes.
And they
Do you understand that, all right?
and they don't cut it down any softwoods greater than 24 inches in diameter,
That's
which is
Well,
basically all that's on most of these tracks.
Yeah, but you say but may be permitted after the 24-inch, which makes me think that the 24-inch thing is then gone.
Well, that's town council. It's not me.
it does.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying you.
I don't know. Dan, what do you think?
I think it's up to the discretion of planning commission whether it should be adjusted.
Well, we
It's
should be
that-
using the same inches as the town council, correct?
But I think they're more so discussing the language that's in there. It says
The but.
but may be permitted on case by case basis if landscape. So as it's written, it's stating it's prohibited, but it may be permitted on a case by case if they do the undisturbed buffer, which in general the buffer is required anyways. So it could be an out or escape for them to go ahead and clear cut where otherwise they wouldn't be able to.
What would
Is
you
that-
suggest? A financial penalty or what?
I
But
think
maybe permitted on a case by case basis, and don't even include the buffer part. And then, but then I guess it just becomes very arbitrary to us to. I don't know.
Yeah, it becomes
I don't
arbitrary.
really know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way this reads, if all of your pine trees are less than 24 inches, you can clear cut and you don't have to have a buffer.
Right. That's the way it reads.
Is that
No,
that
that's-
okay?
That's the way the council's going. I'm not doing this. I didn't put in pines or other soft. I think the pines are particularly good, but I didn't pick 24 inches.
Well,
So,
sure. I'm just we're making recommendations for the PD district, and I think regardless of what the council's doing on something else, this should say what we think it should say, and let the council change
Absolutely.
it if
What
they
do you
think
wanna
it's
say?
inconsistent.
So we
And
don't
then-
want clear cutting. What is the intent of line 14, I guess is the question. We don't want clear cutting.
correct. Right now,
But-
it only prohibits it on hardwoods of 12 inches or larger. That's the current ordinance. What do you want?
Well, but also we have an ordinance already in our tree protection that protects 24-inch in diameter and larger softwoods, don't we?
That's what council's working on, yes.
Okay, so do we need to say it again?
We can just go back to the earlier one, which is 13, that says any PD shall include a survey of all significant trees identified as outlined in the tree preservation section of the town's code of ordinance. In other
And
words, we're
abide by-
deferring to the
yeah.
town council.
Right. And then maybe
Well,
we say, and it should abide by these rules. So we're saying that just because you're making a PD doesn't mean you can circumvent the tree protection policy.
Just,
No.
why don't you say tree,
14 is just a reiteration of what the town says, but we can leave 13 in there because all I got to do is go to there and read the same thing. It's fine with me.
So, but in 13, we're asking them to do a survey, but we're not necessarily saying, and you have to follow the rules. I mean, not that it needs to be said, but maybe we just add it in there and abide by the tree protection policy of the town of Owens.
Well, maybe it should say that the tree preservation regulations cannot be waived through a plan development ordinance. So that just then people can't even ask to do something different than what the tree ordinance says.
Okay, so at the end of the tree preservation 13, you could say, and these requirements cannot be waived.
Yeah, through the plan development rezoning
Yeah.
process.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
And
Yeah, we
then
just wipe out 14.
If the tree
Yeah.
preservation ordinance already addresses clear cutting, then you just take out 14.
yeah.
Okay,
And I
done.
don't even know that we need to say and cannot be waived. Just follow the tree protection policy. Done.
Well, I mean, theoretically, the council could waive any part of a PD or, I mean, a developer could say, hey, I want to change this part of the tree ordinance. And if they can talk council into it, they can do it. But if the ordinance says you can't waive this, then council can't waive it.
Council can waive it. We
Yeah, I
can't.
think they can do what they want.
Well, if I may, a point of clarification, just to reaffirm kind of what Kelly is referring to is that sometimes developers or individuals will use a plan development to skirt various requirements, as we're aware, right? So
Yes.
this language would prevent them from skirting the requirements of the tree preservation ordinance, which I think we could all agree, we've seen developers with plan developments do just that. So I think the point
Yeah.
of what Kelly's making the distinction there is to make sure that that language, whether town council or planning commission differ from that the ordinance reads it cannot be waived. That's correct, Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my understanding of what you wanted, and we were going
Okay.
to put it in at the end of 13. Is that okay?
Kelly, you like that? Add that to
Yeah.
13 and get rid of 14?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Number old 13, new 15. This is new. We did not have stormwater management previously, like we didn't have impervious surfaces. And we certainly have got to have it. The stormwater management system must,
Well, I'm not following where you are. I thought we were
I've got
on
a 13 in yellow called development impact fee. That's my next thing. Am I looking at a bad copy?
No, this was the advertised copy.
yeah.
Okay. Let's stick
We
with that.
we put in stormwater management, and obviously that came from our vice chair Hardy. Excuse me, Reichert. Hart. I'm sorry, Jeff. I didn't want to wake you up there. Anyway, yes.
Did
we
I
needed
add that? I
stormwater
don't remember
management.
that.
Yeah, we
I
needed the
might have
stormwater.
we might have talked about it, but I don't think I edited this.
Where the on-site filtration in smaller, more numerous ponds versus a large central pond came from Kelly. The fact that we needed a stormwater management came from you. So
Yes.
neither one of you are responsible for this. I'm responsible for this, but that's where I got the idea from. One, we needed stormwater management, and two, Kelly wanted smaller, more numerous ponds versus a large central pond.
Well,
I just
that's-
moved, that was moved up, that language, I think Jay came up with that language, and then I suggested that it move up into this section.
Okay.
Well, I think we don't need to be that specific. I think we just ought to say that we're going to review the stormwater management plan, on our own. We shouldn't just accept whatever, the OCRM or whoever the management agency and who does that for us, Dan? Is it OCRM or DES only?
Yeah, so that would be the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services Stormwater Division. So whether
Yeah.
it's coastal stormwater or their standard stormwater division. Of course, there's a coastal zone consistency certificate that generally accompanies those, but the county in certain cases may review stormwater plans as it relates to their infrastructure. But it's my general understanding, since we are not in MS4, that we would default to state review for those stormwater land disturbance requirements.
Do we?
That's true. But we also know that the stormwater management around here is physically done by the county. They've got the equipment. They make the trenches. They dig them out. They maintain them. Unfortunately, not as much as we would like.
Well, you're talking about in the right of way or on public property, but we're talking about a developer.
Okay.
Should we or can we put some kind of beyond becoming an MS4, can we put some kind of review process on their stormwater management plan?
Of course we can. You're the consultant. What do you want to put there?
I think from a staff standpoint, right, I can wear a lot of hats. Stormwater engineering and stormwater professionalism and everything that goes into stormwater is not a hat that I'm as familiar with. So, if the planning commission feels comfortable with this current group or town council's current group, or we have to remember that in the future, everyone can change, right? So in 20 years, we may have certain members of our town council or town council still there, but others may not be. So we have to remember the scope in which some of our elected or appointed officials can operate with these higher, more technical plans. So
Mhm.
that's why in certain cases defaulting to the state professionals or, a consultant.
Well, our
Um,
consultant, Mickey Seabrook's basically supposed to be doing that now, but he's not because he just defers to whatever OCRM or DES, their review, and then he doesn't look beyond that. I think yeah, I think the stormwater management is something somewhere down the road we should hire a consult. He's not going to be Mickey's not going to be there forever. He's not even going to be there much longer, from what I can tell. And we ought to think about having a consultant to do plan review that would include stormwater management.
yeah, I can't deny that, but I think that would involve a lot of other efforts and steps to be made to supersede the state because we'd have to meet our MS4 requirement before we could take over that permitting directly.
Right.
And
Guys,
that
what
would
do you
be
want to write in
a
here?
large undertaking.
That's a good question. That's what I didn't realize it was in here. I didn't catch that. So,
Could you come back with a version that you would, I mean, you're the national expert. Would you like to come back with a version of 13 for us next time?
sure.
All right, thank you, sir.
I
Done.
mean, because of the next item is an impact fee, and if we're gonna be collecting an impact fee, then we should be paying somebody to review these developers' plans,
Well, the
not
problem is the
just
impact
stormwater
fee
management.
is currently illegal.
Oh, great.
We don't, you have to have a study, and Kelly will tell you this for sure, that justifies your impact fee, or you can tend to get sued.
Mhm.
We cannot locate a study that justifies $3,000 as an impact fee. As far as we know, someone may have made it up, but we ain't got no study. So this is back with Dan and our lawyer is, should we contract for a study? Should we start a study? What should we do? But this basically we can't put in there until we can justify it. And I'm sorry. You looked at that, and I was going like, whoa. And our lawyer looked at that and went, whoa. I mean, we just can't do it.
And
Okay.
if
Are
we
we
do, it
free
should
to
apply
revisit it?
throughout the town.
Are we free to revisit it at any point when our lawyers determine that we can? We're free to
Yes,
change this at any
absolutely.
point? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss the boat.
Yeah, I think it would be smart to go ahead and strike that from this requirement because
Absolutely,
if
sir.
if we leave it in there,
Our
then-
lawyer made it real clear.
yeah.
All right.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Lighting?
So the next thing, which is I added in here, is something that the town is considering. So I want to know from Dan where the town is, and that's on the black sky ordinance. Because we need to have in these PDs a lighting requirement because there's significant thought in this town about not getting huge Klieg lights aimed at the sky type of thing. That's what the tennis court sort of came up with, but that's county's thing. So Dan, where are they on their black sky? Because all we're going to do is copy it and put it in here.
Yeah, so the dark sky ordinance for more or less purposes is in draft phase and will be presented to town council in the near future for
Okay.
consideration for first reading.
Then we will look at it when the town council's figured it out, because that's essentially all we can do.
Yeah.
And that's all we should do.
I will add, we did have a pretty good open discussion about the lighting requirements and parameters as they related to that plan development that we were adjusting not that long ago.
Yes.
And I think that was a pretty good conversation. So we could always revisit those parameters that were set for that plan development as a key or path forward to look forward for overall guiding requirements.
Okay, thank you. All right, other provisions, the town may apply for any other provisions they determine are relevant and necessary to a plan development. That is basically saying the town can can change anything we just proposed. And that's just the facts of life. It's got to be in there. The next section is zoning, and this is near the end. I mean, basically the end, folks. Thank you, Lord. Zoning ordinance standards, they have been Kelly'd, and she's put in, the section talks about section 153.080 and 151.130, and it doesn't tell you what they're for. What Kelly's kindly done is put in what they're for. In parentheses afterwards, like 1350 is use conditions, the second one's signs, the third one's screens and bufferings, fourth one is tree preservation, the fifth one is parking and loading, and so on and so forth. She's basically referenced other parts of our, very nicely, of our town code of ordinances so that people can cross-reference them in real language rather than end numbers. Thank you, Kelly. That was nice. Helped me out,
Where is
too.
that? I don't see that anywhere.
You don't see it, but you're gonna see it.
Oh, next time. Okay.
Yep, that was
Gotcha.
Kelly's thing that came through, and that's when I was going through the 3 screens. And I
Okay.
copied exactly what she put down. And it's very
All right.
nice. So each one of these things after it will say what it is. Okay, that's all. No changes.
Are we talking about .047 B?
We're talking
1 through
about
8?
every one of these things. What do
Yeah.
they talk about? That's all.
Just adding the section titles so that we know what
Yeah.
those cross references are to.
All right. And then the required elements of a plan development. Kelly likes us to call it plan rather than document. So every place you see document, it says plan. And other than that, there are basically no changes. I think we have done a whole heck of a lot this evening, folks. And I very much appreciate your cooperation and actually forbearance through this process. And I'm glad we didn't start wordsmithing in the beginning because we knew this was going to go along, but it should be a lot easier the next time. You've done a heck of a lot of work and most of the stuff has been determined. And thank you.
Can I make one more point before we finish?
Yes, James.
Somewhere I was hoping in somewhere or another that we could enter in something to the effect of septic maintenance requirements, because we didn't say it, and we don't want to be French Quarter Creek.
Would you like to talk to Dan between now and the next meeting and come up with a language of some section?
Sure.
All right.
And couldn't that be part of what we do in our plan development? I mean, plan review? Like we're talking about looking at the stormwater management.
Well, it would be a section in here, so yeah, it'd be something to be reviewed. I think that's what James is trying to say.
Okay. Sure.
Meaning we don't need to mention it in these guidelines, that we just need to do it ourselves. I just like to put as many things on paper as we can, because we've heard too many times Max say, don't do this or you'll get sued. And I want it to be written down in there so it's not a question when it comes time for our meetings.
All right.
Yeah.
So you and Dan are going to put it together. We're looking
Okay.
forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that'll work. I have some language that I've been working on as it relates to that. So I
Well,
think
share it with James and go through it. Jeff, do you have anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Jay, do you have anything?
I got a hungry stomach.
Oh, geez. Listen, every one of us are feeling the same way. James, how about you?
Good to
I
go.
got nothing else. Yeah.
And then we've got that's the J's. Now we got the K.
Yeah, nothing more from me.
Kelly, what do you want? You okay?
Yep,
You gonna
all
let us
set.
go home from school or not? All right. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, do we need to make a motion on this to send it to Dan? Catherine, is that where we are?
So this will be coming back to the Planning Commission. There have been a lot of kind of like consensus ones. Staff has been listing all of the edits. We can go through them one by one to ensure, but we thought that because it was a lot of different discussions, we were going to write down absolutely everything that was discussed, and that way at the next meeting, you guys can have it in written form again to see. Apart from the one motion that was made was for the because there was back and forth discussions on it, was related to the traffic study, traffic analysis, and that was voted up 3-2 to include a traffic analysis.
I just
Uh,
wanted to make sure we didn't need to end this with a motion or something. We could
We
take
don't
no
have
action.
anything to approve right now. We don't have a document in front of us.
Mhm.
And we will have it the next meeting or close
Well,
to it.
and there were some items that were discussed too that weren't on the document as presented. So like we're gonna have to give absolutely everything to you guys.
Yep,
Added.
you will.
We'll get a revised, like a red line version of this document to discuss
Correct.
at the next meeting.
We-
Okay.
Correct.
Kelly's
Correct.
kindly agreed to write a couple of those sections, and James has now kindly agreed, and Jay has kindly agreed on the stormwater.
And
So
everything should be sent to our planning department too, to ensure absolute clarity. So always include Dan and or Jakia on those.
Okay.
okay, and give them enough time to get it in this next version, please.
So that would be
All right.
by when do we need to get that
Dan?
into Dan?
Well, does the planning commission wish to have those edits read at the regular scheduled hearing on January 20th or the secondary special called meeting on the 27th?
Do we need to give proper notice to change it? Does that matter?
No, it
Okay.
would just be as similar as today. We just make sure that the agenda is properly posted.
When do you think you could get it done by, Dan?
I mean, we are a little bit less than a week away from next week's meeting, so preferably be able to get these edits back and ready for the 27th, because next Monday's holiday, and
Yes.
then we would be on to the meeting. So staff have 3 days left of the work week to be able to prepare that.
Oh,
I
it's
think we wait for the third meeting.
We got no problems. Whatever you'd like, Dan, is fine. You're doing a great job.
So I think if the 27th is the date that we're stating, if I could just get those edits from y'all by or meet by the 21st, that would be great.
Everybody okay? Jay, James, Kelly?
Yep. He said the 21st.
Yes.
That's what he said.
Okay.
All right. Now, is there a second for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All opposed? Anybody still awake? All right. Thank you very much, folks. Again, this was a lot of work that we underwent. We probably aren't going to have a lot of PDs, but we're warming up for residential, and that's what we're going to be doing next, and that will be in the next couple of months. But we needed to get this plan development thing under control. As you know, as you guys well know, we had what should we say? 28 of these, and only 2 met the criteria. Basically, tonight you've taken the first step to stop it, and thank you very much. Good night.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Good night.
Take care, everyone.